A young lady rushes forward down the corridor, her heels clearly clicking on the floor, leaving an echo behind them. Someone whispers, "They have never seen such shiny hair. A beautiful golden color." The girl's name is Rosentine Argan. She is frowning because she is unhappy, since she asked in advance that no one in the castle talk to her. She thought that this was not the best idea. The duo snort. They don't understand how such savagery exists. The girl has no knowledge of etiquette at all. They expected something more from the daughter of that Argan, not such an outrage. The girl didn't quite understand why she was doing all this as they continued. If they weren't liked, that meant she was a witch, and the unfortunate child would be executed if she was caught. Apparently, the heroine was raised incorrectly by her deceased mother, and unable to bear it, she orders them to leave since she has no interest in ghosts. There is a ban on magic in the country. The history begins with the founding of the Cartesian Empire, which united the continent of Akron and ruled alone for almost 1,000 years. Disasters rained down from above, and people began to think that the country was cursed. Many people died for no reason, which led to popular unrest, and the naval Royal Bishutean appeared under the pretext of improving public opinion. They promoted revolution. The intentions of the ruler and the country were extremely simple. With the disappearance of Cartazan, the leadership over the continent of Akron would pass directly to them. Surprisingly, when a spark of unrest flared up on a continent dying from natural disasters, the catastrophe suddenly stopped for no reason. The emperor chose the right move. He said that all the problems were caused by the descendants of magicians who opposed the lords even before the founding of the empire. From that day on, all witchcraft was banned, and the persecution of sorcerers began. Bishuteyan does not want to retreat so easily because the prosperity of the kingdom does not satisfy them. They were planning to stage a coup, justifying all this with heroic actions, supposedly wanting to save the people. They failed because as a result of everything, the empire regained its wealth and power, it flourished. There are two pillars that supported Carthage from its very foundation. These people are the distinguished high-ranking officials, resourceful Arjun, and mighty Kazenstu. Rosentine was born in the First Duchy. The girl had everything she could want. But she had a problem. She was doomed to the curse of seeing ghosts. She had all her memories from her past life in Korea. She wanted to live her new life peacefully. Usually, the main characters of the novels she had once read missed their past. But not in her case. Constant self-confidence suited her face. Any world and any life, especially this one, would be better than the hell she had to endure, as Yoon Sol Woo. My past life was like an endless race I couldn't fall behind even for a moment, so as not to lose those grains of reality. There was no particular reason, however the girl could see ghosts from birth. Ordinary people, as a rule, do not accept those who are different from them. Even the family did not want to accept the woman. Childhood turned out to be treacherous, but with the help of relatives who allowed me to live with them, I managed to at least study until high school. Previously, Yoon had a faint hope that she could gain at least a little understanding. Of course, the result was not the best. After several failures, the heroine felt doomed. People were constantly whispering behind her back. Contemptuous glances became commonplace. Her wounds increased in number in this endless race. She was constantly falling, but even so, she never allowed herself to cry. There was simply no way out. She had to go through life alone. Her relatives wanted to get rid of the girl after high school, believing that she had survived so long, all thanks to mercy. Despite all the words they said, the heroine did not feel unhappy, as long as she could live. Everything was fine. Survival was the only revenge that led to fate. It seemed that she would be able to withstand all the obstacles that arose along the way. But one day in December, when Yoon was 20, an empty and meaningless end overtook her. And suddenly, nothing mattered anymore. At the moment of her death, she managed to realize something she had not realized all these years. How tired she was, even in death. There was a certain joy. There was no need to run forward anymore. The beauty thought that she would plunge into oblivion. But what was her surprise when, opening her eyes, she saw an unfamiliar ceiling, warm rays of sun making their way through the silk curtains, and outside the window, a beautiful garden. The girl was given another chance. God showed her mercy at first. While she still had not figured out where she was and what was happening, a new family appeared nearby. The parents smiled, wanting to show their daughter her younger sister court. It was warm outside, as well as in her soul, even knowing that sooner or later the cold would come, because winter would come. The lady was not afraid. At the end of happiness, certain misfortunes may come again. However, Yoon was going to get up again and again. She was firmly determined to protect the world in which she came by the will of God. A woman attends a trumpeting ceremony at the imperial palace, where the dead are mixed in with the living aristocrats. For the heroine, they are all the same, so she must be careful who she talks to. It was impossible to allow anyone to see the Duchess's conversation with the ghost. Unfavorable rumors would spread the door ahead. In the hall reminded her of something unpleasant. 9 years ago, while at the palace, Rosentine followed court. Then they were 16 and 10 years old. Everything around seemed huge. More to say, majestic. The architecture was breathtaking. Blue Eyes decides that she wants to go inside the palace to explore it. And there, the ghosts located on the grounds nod in agreement, saying that it is an excellent choice. Then the woman was lucky because she was able to drive the two away, because she did not want them to notice her strange behavior. She had seen the dead since the moment of her rebirth. Experience from a past life made it clear what could happen if you show the stubborn ones what is known about them. The girl tried to live, pretending that she does not see or hear anything, just exists in reality. Time passed, and the situation didn't seem to be getting worse, until unfortunately, the Duchess turned 9 when her mother lost consciousness, and no one could explain the reason. She and her father went to the palace for the first time. The little girl saw so many ghosts. They all chatted about Argan's illness. They all knew that, after giving birth to her second daughter, the woman was ill for about a year. Her condition worsened. Not only did the dead whisper about the illness, they believed that the lady did not have long left 6 months at most. Rosentine regretted that she had not pretended not to hear and given free rein to her emotions. Everyone realized that she had a gift. If the lady had known that there were so many of them in the imperial palace, she would not have set foot there. But since that was the case, she had no choice. And on that day, 10 years ago, the heroine led court into the ballroom to look around. The situation was tense. I was distracted for just a moment, and my sister had already disappeared somewhere. I was scared that she was not the kind of child who would run away without saying a word, and a bad feeling formed inside me. The woman looked around until she noticed a huge door in front of her, which seemed to have never been there before. Rushing into the room, she saw Court, who, looking at the floor, asked for help. Behind her stood a ghost, but without a face. Of course, something was wrong, completely wrong. Rosenstein picked up her sister, who was left completely unconscious. She did not understand what to do next. The blonde understood that she needed to save her sister, and if she was considered a witch, one could say that it was the Duchess's own doing. She was going to do anything just to achieve what she wanted. Something happened. A man appeared in front of the lady and ordered her to come to her senses. If anyone found out Court could die for these words, she wanted to hit him. It was impossible. Affectionate parents, a caring and gentle sister, Court, a loving family that one could not even dream of in a past life. Everything was fine. But thinking about destruction is scary. The Duchess felt despair because her new life was much more precious than her own, and it had only been 6 years since her mother had died, and she couldn't bear to lose her youngest child as well. The stranger, strangely enough, offered to make a deal that ghost without a face is a ghost of madness. Court was born with a body that attracts all evil. If it retreats, everything will end well. The man wanted to save the child. He even offered to help in the future. But there were doubts inside. It was not clear whether it was possible to trust. Despite this, there was no other choice. It remained to agree. The ghost wanted Arjun to fulfill one of his requests. That would be enough, although the lady would regret her choice just as she always did. The man introduced himself. His name was Renan. The girl agreed and returned back to Court, hugging her. She apologized for not noticing. Everything is fine, now don't worry about it. Understanding that until consent is given, the maiden will not stop looking detached. The lady asks a question, the gentleman explains from the very beginning. As is known in the imperial palace, there are countless ghosts as well as outside its walls. The hero was going to tell a way to control the dead. For this a name is needed because it binds the deceased creature to the world. Knowing the names, one can control it as one wishes. Renan knew that only Rosentine could see the afterlife. The man said the name of the faceless ghost. Hostin Carthagine, come on, try to subdue him. At first, there was only surprise, this name of a member of the imperial family, receiving a blessing. Strange that the young man became evil and roamed freely around the palace. There are still many doubts inside. You can't hesitate. You need to try the available methods. Try to summon a ghost to correct the situation. Looking at Court's frighteningly pale face, the sister apologizes for having to go through so much due to carelessness. Everything will definitely be fine. The Duchess wants to save the youngest until the day when she no longer needs her help. No matter what happens, the lady will protect happiness and peace. The girl asks Argan to open her eyes. Turning around, she orders Hasten to obey. He is obliged to bring the heroine back to her senses, leaving her completely alone. The light around is separated, a heavy explosion that fills the space. The stranger was right, the evil spirit has disappeared. 9 years have passed since then. It happened before the debutante ball. In the Emperor's palace, all the ghosts are quite specific. They love to swear, belittle those who are still alive, and they also don't like to belittle Renan. The man, oddly enough, deliberately pretends to be a fool. No matter how much you think about it, the question remains open. It is not clear why this happens time after time. Commanding the ghost to disappear when it took over the court was a form of witchcraft that was absolutely forbidden, and after that day, the Duchess never brought her sister to the castle again. The lady postponed the ball to be ready for anything, but something was bothering her. She realized that she knew the names of all the deceased, and that there was something unusual in the palace, branching out from reality. A member of the imperial family was cast down to the level of an evil spirit despite having received divine and golden blessings. After all, to protect the youngest one needs a spirit. It will not be possible to live calmly and peacefully. At the event, the second moon of Carthagin, His Highness Prince Charteuse is finally introduced, and everyone in the room gasps as he majestically walks forward into the hall. Blue-Eyed is no exception. She understood why people gossip about him incessantly. There is definitely something to see there. The man has a beautiful appearance, resourcefulness, and on top of all this, he is skilled in the art of the sword. There are rumors about him that evil fate loves him and passes him by. Although in the distant past, the Duchess once contacted him, the good news was that he wouldn't have to deal with the imperial family anymore. The ghosts were talking about superstitions again, and they all believed that the young man was cursed. Rumors of something strange in the ruler's family remain a mystery, but there have been many cases where in one generation, along with a prominent person, another family member inevitably finds himself close to death. Charteus's brother is bedridden. Perhaps the lady admitted to herself that she believed to some extent, especially since Crown Prince Eswar had indeed withdrawn from the world due to the progressive deterioration of his health. Esvart and Charteuse are brothers whose affection is so strong that it is not uncommon for the struggle for succession in such families to prove impossible. On the day the invincible knight became head of the guard, he declared that he had no claims to the throne. In the perfectly harmonious relationship between the brothers, a rift occurred due to Edward's unexpected deterioration in health a year ago, and uncontrollable gossip among the aristocrats began at the same time. The man's silence only increased the doubts. Everything came to the point that he had to leave the commander's post. Standing in the hall, the lady ponders, until one of the spirits says that she knows something interesting. The woman smiles when she says that Charteuse will soon die. She is pleased to say that there is poison in the young man's glass. Obviously, someone is going to ruin his life, and everyone around him. Rushing forward, the lady searches the crowd for Renan. He does not answer the question of whether the words are true, shrugging his shoulders. He suggests asking directly, only in this way, perhaps will it be possible to find out the truth. A woman whispers a name, addressing Gertrude. The heroine wants to know the truth. She must prevent the poisoning of a member of the royal family in case someone really is planning to commit an assassination. The deceased snorts. She can't help but think that the beauty is too willful, a person she personally witnessed. It saw how two people were secretly talking at the clock tower, a man and some maid. At first it seemed like they had a forbidden relationship, so they had to meet in the dark, almost at night, but then they agreed to switch the glass, ending the prince's life. Rosenstein nods. No matter how you look at it, It really does seem suspicious, but it's hard to believe in an attempt at poisoning. It turns out Humpty also saw a suspicious person. He was secretly meeting with someone who deals in alcohol. It turns out that they are going to add poison to the wine that will be served at the ball. This is a typical scheme that anyone can easily figure out, and there will be no problem with it. A few bribed people become a tail that is easy to cut off once it is caught. When caught and interrogated, these people will know nothing but the orders they received. It becomes scary to understand that the empire will fall sooner or later. The world will find a replacement and continue to exist as before. Madame reminds of the same. The day of prosperity is approaching. The prince is destined to die. Argan forces himself to think, after all, we are talking about an assassination attempt on a royal person. The best solution would be to rush there, even if his own life is at stake. There is no choice anyway. The woman dreamed of living peacefully, protecting the peace of her family, but nothing works out. She goes to the garden where the moon shines brightly. This reminds her of Cartazan Chartreuse. A long time ago, the Duchess got lost in a palace that was still unfamiliar to her. While wandering around the area, she came across a boy who immediately attracted her attention. The girl was enchanted, admitting to herself that the young man was beautiful, like a doll created by the hands of God with love. Then the boy asked who the lady was. The little girl should have gone back to her father, but she decided it would be okay to stay a little longer. She could never resist the sight of something cute, so she walked forward, full of determination. Coming up, she extended her hand. This gesture made the hero even more embarrassed. Only then did he manage to remember that there are no handshakes in the world. He had to explain that this was a greeting. There are no such gestures in Carthaginian etiquette, but where the lady grew up, this is common practice. The young man noticed that he was weak, so he could not go outside often. For this reason, he was not very well versed in the trends of the outside world. He was impolite for this. He immediately asks for sincere forgiveness. They ask him not to apologize because in the end, the prince did not know it is enough that everything is fine. The girl noticed the smile, which made her feel even more pleased. Chardas offered to thank her according to etiquette, who knew that the meeting was fleeting. However, the Duchess was unable to forget the boy. Then he introduced himself, seeming too simple and good-natured for a member of the imperial family. The voice constantly whispering to the woman that she can continue to hide from the world, closing her eyes and covering her ears. Dealing with the royal family can cost lives. Carthazan has great power. He can easily burn Court and Rosentine at the stake if he ever reveals the secret with magic. It is too risky to bet a life for a life in a game where the opponent is a member of the ruling dynasty. But if the rescue is successful, the young man will end up in debt, and then a guarantee of safety can be demanded as payment. A lady walks through the water. The cold burns her feet. It becomes unpleasant. It is not clear where she is. This is clearly not the capital. The place is in a remote area. A moment later, everything is on fire. Even the family home, and everyone else who was in the residence there, are strange feelings inside, as if they came from other people opening her eyes. The girl jumps up on the bed. She was asked to save her. The heroine was haunted by a terrible headache. All morning, it was restless to sleep in the castle. For several days, she ran around the entire imperial palace, trying to find a way to meet the prince. It's time for the final battle. The first rule is to never reveal your identity. If you believe the ghost stories, you can expect anything from a meeting with the prince. That's the kind of person he is. If the plan that was planned in advance fails, you can say goodbye to your precious life. The Duchess is obliged to cope. She even has an ace up her sleeve. As night falls outside, the woman makes her way out into the street, fully dressed, and pulling on a hooded cape, heading to her destination. Just in case the girl drank a voice-changing potion in advance, all that remains is to wait for the second prince to appear. The lady looks around, but for now the carriage is not in sight. A few minutes later, a carriage turns around, meaning he's finally arrived. The girl was looking for the imperial family's coat of arms, but there was no point as the carriage can be seen from a kilometer away. The prince clearly has security issues. There is no room for hesitation. The maiden jumps forward, hoping that everything will end well, and they will stop in front of her. She closes her eyes, expecting that everything will end soon. She is lucky. A furious cry is heard. The man is angry, because if the girl really wanted to die, she should have chosen a slightly better place. In front of Rosentine is Chardas's guard dog. Hastan Mafilit. The woman begins to apologize. She has figured out how she will answer for her actions, so she says that her eyes are completely blind, but she cannot believe that the prince himself is inside. It is time to lure him out of the carriage. Initially, those who came up with the conspiracy knew that the man was famous for his prudence, and he would probably regard an attempt to meet at night as suspicious. There is a way calling him the Golden Descendant, because he hates this word. The woman does not know where the risk will lead her. Perhaps she will get what she deserves. But it is worth trying. She falls on her knees. Noble Golden Descendant, may your blessing always shine upon us. This name signifies a severe blessing from the imperial family, and people try not to use it as many are aware of the consequences it will entail. His Highness comes outside, although Kostan should have handled everything himself. He looks dissatisfied initially. What happened was of no use to him. It will only delay him in time. Frowning even more, the gentleman turns to his assistant. Everything worked. Rosenstein quickly makes an honest assessment of tastes. She likes the young man's face. She can try to talk. The first to try to justify herself is Mifilit, declaring that the old woman herself threw herself right under the wheels. The woman hopes for mercy, and therefore whispers something about how she could not have thought about the imperial carriage. The maiden asks for her forgiveness. However, she had a reason. Rosenstein was brought to the prince. By the revelation of the Lord himself, she asks to listen. In his visions, he sees the empire's rising moon tormented by fear every night, or the illness of a blood brother that worsens day by day, or an ice storm that threatens to engulf the capital with the arrival of winter. The Golden Descendant is always followed by a shadow that intends to take his life. The woman looks straight into the eyes if she is allowed. She wants to help to make the heavy burden fall from his shoulders. It is possible that everything is exactly as it should be. If not for the young man's supporters, the truth would never have reached the girl. Her body is weak, and her vision is poor, but her eyes and ears still see and hear. Things are revealed to her that are not presented to other people in the world. She was called a sorceress, and not only she sees the shadow of death that hangs over His Highness. If you trust the magician, she will save you from death. Hostin tries to speak out, but he is stopped in time. The hero must admit that the woman standing before him has amazing self-confidence. However, words mean nothing if they cannot be backed up by anything. The lady will be accused of treason and an attempt on the life of Kartazan the Younger. The lady expected that it would be extremely difficult to reach an agreement. If this man were too trusting, he could not be entrusted with the future of the arcana. A man needs to understand that by speaking with the master, a woman may be bringing trouble upon herself and her half-days, but still following God's plan. The well-being of the prince determines not only what will happen to the imperial family, but also what awaits the lands. In Kartazan, members of the ruler's family are revered as gods. It's understandable that what's happening can be irritating, because some witch potentially condemned to death dares to reflect in front of them on the viability of the country. It's scary, but there's no turning back. His Highness nods. The words are true, and they were spoken by none other than the sorcerer. It is strange that the stranger decided to risk her life, but the story is quite intriguing. It's interesting to see where such patriotism comes from in her blood. The girl understands that the boy was much nicer in childhood, but now something is showing up in him that is impossible to imagine. It needs to be explained in more detail. The shadow of death hanging over His Highness is a warning that some danger will soon take him by surprise. More cannot be said, because this is only a small hint. It is necessary to collect more information floating around and put together a complete picture. The gentleman is interested in what the old woman is offering. She had already said that she had become completely weak, but if the prince allowed it, she would like to give her granddaughter, who possessed the same abilities, under her wing. This will not harm the girl remaining near the master. She will be able to read the necessary signs and strength. She surpasses the lady. The child will collect all the threads and will be able to complete the whole work. Life is like a crossroads. Knowledge of the future is incredibly important because it allows you to choose the right path and avoid all the vicissitudes of fate. The master will be able to avoid all problems if he understands in which direction he should move. Already at the estate, the lady is finally removed from the corset and informed that she will not have to wear it for some time. So this is a kind of way to relax. The letter has already been sent to the Duke. The elder lady was sent to Biridan for treatment. All the problems with the villa's guard were resolved, so the girl no longer has anything to worry about. The woman is getting ready to leave before that. Of course, she gives some instructions while she is away. All responsibility for managing the estate lies entirely with the maids. The father is busy and will not be able to take care of it. That morning, Court had thrown a fit of hysterics because she couldn't understand how the girl had suddenly decided to leave for Birdan, and not just for a few days, but for a whole month. The blue-eyed girl didn't understand why she would be left completely alone. Rosenstein calmly asked her to calm down. She herself understood that her sister must be very upset. It was a pity that circumstances had developed in such a way that everything seemed completely wrong. The decision to go on the trip had to be made in a hurry, so there was no choice. Of course, she would have to leave for a month, but the lady sincerely hoped that she would return a little earlier. The little girl cried and asked that letters be sent to her as often as possible, and in the absence of her mistress, she needed to look after her sister so that she would not feel lonely, and under no circumstances should she visit the imperial palace. They said that the wig was created by a special technique known only to aristocrats, but the lady could not imagine that it would hide absolutely everything. Her hair turned black, only the color of her eyes did not change. The maiden called herself Rowan. In the west of the capital, there is a remote palace of His Highness, the Prince. The old woman was told that her granddaughter can come there to fulfill her promise. The woman waited to be let in, and then entering the main hall, she greeted the moon of the Holy Empire. Shardas heard that they could help him avoid danger and death. The young man examines the brunette. He says out loud that the sequence of events is quite strange. First the strange old woman, and then they slipped him an immature chick. I would like to express my opinion on the fact that the age difference is no more than 3 or 4 years. And taking into account the past life, the girl is generally older. You need to try to restrain yourself, but not allow yourself to be walked all over. The lady sees nothing wrong with enjoying her youth. The assistant begins to boil, but is asked to remain silent. The girl is not just behaving inappropriately, she should not observe etiquette. This could arouse suspicion. Maintaining the image of a witch is important. You should behave more freely, even if people around you think you are an eccentric. Shardas will clarify one thing. He let the old woman go, only because he needed to go somewhere. It was probably easier to let the woman go than to take action right in the very center of the city. There could have been witnesses. It is known that the prince has difficulty trusting people he doesn't know well. Even so, if the girl was summoned to the estate, it means that the master realizes, as the grandmother predicted, that a conspiracy is being woven around to take her life. That night, Shardas responded to the message the lady learned from the ghosts about the letter sent by a certain Count Almoth. He is the head of the aristocrats of the Crown Prince faction and the main political opponent of the second prince. The maid who was then able to notice was brought to the castle by the same man. It would have been easier if upon approaching the prince, the lady had realized the contents of the letter, but it did not work out because ghosts cannot open messages. You have to look for the positive in everything. The lady understood that if she rushed into the discussion, she would, on the contrary, arouse suspicions, and the actions would be carried out in a completely different way. The man is told about his office. It is there, behind the eagle statue, in the third drawer of the bookcase on the right, that there is a letter from the head of Almot. This is the first step to tying all the threads. Shardas asks if the young lady is confident. However, she doesn't think confidence is important. As soon as she stepped into the castle and started speaking, she put the lives of her family members on the line. The prince nods. He understands how she feels about this. In that case, it would be best to make a deal. The girl probably has what she wants. She can negotiate exactly that. The lady is in disguise, and so she wanted to demand that the Duchy of Argan never appear in danger. She asks that, when everything is over, Kartazan not try to threaten or find out information and threaten the safety of the family. Grandmother said that she wanted to help Kartazan. Apparently, the lady has other motives. Her intuition is correct. The young man will not refuse the deal. His Highness nods. This only means that he agrees, in which case the blue-eyed one wants to draw up a contract. She puts a sheet of paper on the table. The world Yoon found herself in was not as progressive as the one she had lived in before. So for workers' rights to be protected, times had to change. The girl doesn't know what will happen to her once the whole thing is over. A person who knows too much is a threat to the government, so she will easily find herself in danger if it turns out that Rowan is Argan. The prince will change his mind and get rid of the witness. The young man clarifies the detail, wondering if confidence is a manifestation of reckless courage. Not only the lives of loved ones, but also the life of the magician depend on the success of the matter. The prince will not change his decision. It is not too late to run away, but there is nowhere to go because the lady once already tried to escape from life. The sorceress came to protect the master. She puts her life on the deal. According to the ghosts, 3 conspiracies are being hatched simultaneously in the castle, meaning that if the enemies fail the first time, they will try twice more. Someone strongly desires Shardas's death. Within the palace walls, many who wish for the death of a man gather. Usually, sorcerers are considered enemies of the empire and desperately try to hide from the eyes of the imperial family. However, it was as if the grandmother had deliberately thrown herself under the wheels of the carriage, and the granddaughter was not afraid of anything at all. The idea came to mind that the granddaughter knew much more than she was saying. The girl's legs suddenly gave way, everything inside her turned over. She felt completely uneasy, a bloodthirsty aura was felt. They were trying to test Roan in such an unusual way. The lady pulls herself together. She declares that she doesn't know anything in particular and isn't trying to commit treason, in which case they will be connected. She was taken by the arm, but it's best to break free. She doesn't want to experience unnecessary touching. The atmosphere is tense. The maiden is trying to come to her senses. She is angry at the fact that the prince thinks that being beautiful is the most important thing in life. Soon the assistant completes all the preparations and informs the master about it. Mephilet comes forward and begins to read but is asked to correct himself. They put Rowan's name first, which doesn't suit her. His Highness should come first. This method is common among merchants in the Hodden region in the north, and she used it too. By law, a name must change every 33 years, so it's impossible to enter into a contract with a name mentioned. Using this method will make it easier to evade liability than with disguise, especially since it's widely used. The conditions stipulate several key meanings. When a woman saves a man from danger, her life and that of her family must be guaranteed. Under no circumstances can anyone harm her solely due to the power of witchcraft. It would be worse if the young man began to dig deeper. Hostin must bring new paper. Roan is also not obliged to serve at night. His Highness by nature occupies a prominent position. After all, everyone knows about the gentleman's adventures. There is no longer any secret about this. Precautionary measures are important. The man smiles. He has nothing left to say in his defense. He asks to add the point that is being asked for. The knight feels ashamed. The next day, they went to the very center of the capital, to the imperial palace of Landstor, up close. It seems even more magnificent than the witch imagined. Of course, this is a lie. The woman looks more and more closely at His Highness, looking back. She herself does not understand how she could have considered his face angelic. He looks more like a demon, enchanting people taking possession of their souls. The first ghost is visible outside the window. The girl wants to hope that she is not recognized. The lady chuckles, saying out loud that she has seen such clear blue eyes somewhere before. Luckily, the disguise is successful. As she walks away, the woman tells her husband that before them is a new maid, the center of power, the imperial palace, a place where everyone is judged by the amount of wealth and luxury displayed. The world is exactly like this. In its appearance decides everything. If a person is unattractive, no one will be interested in him. The story ends. The ghosts in the palace are well acquainted with Rosentine, and if any of them recognize the girl in the guise of a commoner, at the very least, questions may arise. According to the contract, the heroine will officially work as Shardas's hired servant, which will allow her to be more inconspicuous and get into any corner of the palace. But even so, attention will still be drawn. It is known that before Roan, the man did not bring his vassals. The girl's manifestation will become a certain hot topic. The virgin prepares herself mentally. Her time begins. She will try. A few days later, the heroine wished she had taken it so calmly, because from the very first day, Moren, a devoted servant, approached her, and from the very first day, she began to terrorize the girl, asking why she was always so slow and stupid. In a past life, she often had to do cleaning and other things, so the lady knows all of the above. The problem is that she found herself in a terrible situation that makes her blood boil. Shartus, as if hearing a plea for help, went down to the maids to greet the newcomer. The maiden can come to terms with this. She only hopes that nothing more will be said. They hug her. Roan will personally help me. People around him start to whisper discontentedly. He could not help but expect such a reaction. So he is obliged to reap the fruits of his labor. He behaved in this way on purpose to make the work easier. Morin, oddly enough, began to treat her even worse. She still makes the girl wash and clean, and if she doesn't have time, she won't get any food at all, which will be even worse. The thoughtful servants have already begun to guess, at least the head maid, who understands very well what is coming to the castle, what changes. The period of the transfer of power is by no means a troubled time, as the moon rises in the place of the sun, and Chartreuse takes the vacant place of the crown prince, who is bedridden due to his illness. In such a dangerous time, the young man suddenly decides to bring in a new maid, and the girl is yelled at again for being silent and too calm, and needs to work hard. Initially, the heroine only hoped that she would work quietly, but it turns out that both worlds are approximately the same, despite the fact that the beauty knows how to endure well. This time, everything will be completely different. The brunette was hired as a maid because there were no other options. If things were left as they were, others could also become victims of Morin's unfair treatment. The situation was not in any danger, so she would get away with it anyway. The Virgin is not going to do the maid's work for her, but on the contrary, will teach her how to behave properly. For the first time, she manages to see the palace in its entirety. Being an honored guest, Rosentine could not visit other parts except the hall. The brunette finds the knight and asks where the servants' restroom is. He points forward, saying that a small shelter can be found there. The girl tries to ignore the voices of ghosts, but something attracts her attention. Someone is talking about a jewelry cabinet from legends that Count Hermann found. Rumors are spreading throughout the palace, but Renan is not aware of it. The man they are talking about is an aristocrat from the second prince's faction. A few days ago, Chartres went to the county to make a secret agreement, and the lady decides to eavesdrop on the conversations. The cabinet is made of ivory, which is why it costs a fabulous amount, but that's not all because it is not made of simple bone, but of mura. Hermann wants to present it to one of the princes, a feudal undertaking. There are legends about Mura's ivory, as it is an object mentioned in many legends and known to every resident of Akrans. There is a legend that a long time ago there lived a fisherman named Mura, whose beloved was sick. Wandering in the southern sea, he received the treasure of God. They say it is made of ivory and holds a secret cures. There's a strange feeling inside the maiden. The timing of the wardrobe's appearance is surprising. The crown prince is almost certainly suffering from an incurable disease, and an assassination attempt is being prepared on Chartreuse. It's unclear what will happen if the gentleman receives the gift when his brother dies. Hermann belongs to the second prince's faction. He has no reason to do work that benefits his older brother. Arjun throws aside his doubts and comes up to greet the ghosts. They immediately scream, but very soon, they realize who is standing in front of them. No one has seen the girl for a long time. She asks where she can get something to eat, and they send her to her aunt. In the corridor, a lady is eating everything that was given to her a little, but enough some gentleman looks at her intently and then asks, "What are you doing here?" It's immediately clear that the prince's assistant is standing nearby. He has the same expression on his face as Hostin, and it's noticeable that his clothes are expensive, but not like those of aristocrats. Rather, they are closer to bureaucrats. Moreover, Rosentine had become a maid only 2 days before the meeting. Rumors travel fast. But he would not have been able to recognize it at first glance without being close to Chartreuse. The puzzle is easy to put together. Roan is as perceptive as the man thought. He grins and introduces himself as Lucien, then asks if the lady is looking for a clue. Surprisingly, he even knows the purpose of the hire. The hero is not in a normal relationship with Chartres. Hostin looks stupid. However, they trust him so much that they even took him along to a secret agreement with Hermann. The assistant is clearly also close to His Majesty. Lucan took the girl with him, and exactly as the master had ordered, brought the maid into the main hall. The first thing that caught his attention about her was the remains of food in the hem of her dress. No matter how you look at her, she was not dying of hunger. The woman wants to yell, but due to her status, she cannot allow herself to do so. Although she found herself in this situation not through her own fault. It is strange that he even decided to raise such a sensitive topic. Even animals stock up for the winter, but even this fact does not have much significance for the young man. He only remembers small rodents. Initially, the hero was going to show the letter, because he had summoned the girl for no reason. She had told him to check behind the eagle figurine in the third drawer of the bookcase on the right. Turning there and fishing out a piece of paper, he hands it to Rosenstein. She switches her attention. The first line is addressed to the beloved and cherished moon of the empire. It looks like a love letter. The family seal definitely belongs to the county of Almath. It is sealed with a spell. Something inside gives me no peace. To prevent Bishutean from spying when the empire was unstable, a method of such correspondence was devised, using spells, the imperial family being an exception to the law prohibiting witchcraft. A moment later, the content changes. Someone writes to the young man to warn him that information has been released about a ball in honor of the birthday of Her Highness Princess Abantoise. One must beware of the golden goblet. The maid received a secret order from the conspirators to switch the glasses of two princes on a specified day. All this is similar to the details of the first assassination attempt. Judging by the ghost's words, the conspirator in the darkness does not shy away from dirty methods and uses threats to control other people's mouths, believing that this is the best solution. It is surprising that only Almota's servant was involved in the conspiracy. Such a scrupulous person could not fail. The brunette says she will make a prediction. Apparently, the glasses mentioned in the letter are two sacred glasses, from which members of the imperial family will drink at events. Of the two, it is the crown prince's portion that will contain poison. If they are swapped on the day X, it is not hard to guess that the poison will kill Chartreuse. A ceremony is held in Cartazine, in whose family the curse is passed down. Typically held once every 10 years on the birthday of a member of the ruling family, the sacred golden goblet is filled with grape wine. The drink symbolizes imperial power, and with the emperor's blessing, the contents are drunk by the descendant, who has the right to inherit. Such is the ritual of prayer for the health and prosperity of the ruler. Interrupting the ceremony would be comparable to blasphemy. Even knowing that the glass contains poison, the prince will be obliged to drink it. The conspirator has thought through every detail. If His Highness drinks the poisoned glass, Count Almoth, whose maid was an accomplice, will be the prime suspect. She was chosen from the start. The conspirator found something special in her. The letter is needed as decisive evidence that will allow the blame to be placed on someone who is innocent. The glass that does not contain poison was not there to begin with. Poison was added to both. The count, knowing that his maid was involved in the conspiracy, wrote a letter to justify himself. But perhaps the prince was destined to die anyway. If evidence is discovered, the count will be unable to escape false accusations. The prince and crown prince factions constantly surface in the case. Surprisingly, there is something else that bothers Rosenstein. She is not allowed to ask directly, but she still wants to ask a question. I wonder who Mura's ivory is for. When the disease first began to progress, it became clear that, of the two, it was Chartreuse who was blessed, his brother who was cursed, and the only fate left was death. It was scary. The young man is calm. The ivory is intended for Kartazin, the younger. Hermann discovered it so that the master himself could give what he needed to his brother, thereby trying to help improve his condition. The assumptions were correct. If Chartreuse's death could not be prevented, with the revival of Esvar, the political situation in Kartazin would change significantly. Everything would come to an end. The young man's gaze is special. It is exactly the same as Rosenthine's own when she thinks about her younger sister. She loves her very much and would be willing to go to any lengths just to provide help if needed. The only thing that connects the girl with Chartreuse is a mutual desire to survive. There is nothing good in the fact that she is gradually becoming imbued with him. This needs to be eradicated, and as quickly as possible. Lucan intervenes because she doesn't understand everything yet. If the problem is with the maid, she can be caught, but this won't work. The conspirator probably covered his tracks. The goal is not just to avoid the assassination attempt, but to find its roots so that it is not repeated again. ivory and deadly poison, contradict each other. However, given the coincidence of circumstances, this is not just so. The witch asks that a letter be sent to Almat, and when the day of the ball arrives, that she follow the movements of the hired servant, not missing anything. A training session is taking place on the court, initiated specifically for Roan. She is trying with all her might to resist the prince. It seems that this task is considered impossible. Soon after all the futile attempts, the sword flies off somewhere to the side. The blue-eyed one did not even dream of winning, although she is deceiving when she does not reveal the truth of her hopes. Even experienced swordsmen find bayonet difficult to handle, so much, so that knights find it much easier with a rapier. The girl has several primary tasks, for example, learning not to swing the sword left and right. It will be useful to master the technique of suppressing the enemy. The best solution is to focus on how to confuse the enemy in a short time, and buy some time for Rowan. This is difficult. I want to cry because I have no strength left after just a light fight. She does not look like a person capable of competing with one of the best swordsmen in the country. The girl didn't want to go into the ring, but everything changed when 3 days ago, in that very office, the man reported that a response had arrived from Almat. The accomplice was the last one to actually touch the glass. The conspirator does not trust, so he will send surveillance to verify the death of His Highness and report it to the higher-ups. Upon learning that the attempt has failed, the stranger may decide to get rid of the maid. Chartreuse is an unrivaled warrior. The enemy must understand that using ordinary poison to kill him is useless. There is probably something unusual. It may happen that no traces of its presence will be found. We need to catch the person who will monitor the execution of the task and find out everything. I wonder how to do this. This time, Rosenstein will take this task upon himself, doing everything to correct the situation. The stranger is a close associate of the enemy. The maid's face is still unknown to anyone. Roan is warned that a trained warrior is needed because the girl is not at all ready for battle. You can resist. There will be many witnesses at the ball, and therefore the enemy will not risk making a fuss in the presence of the emperor. It may not be possible to detain him, but at least the demands will be met. Arjun presses on the most painful part. Only she can do everything right. There are no other options. With the help of witchcraft, she knows where and how the poison will be added, and Chartreuse will deal with the main problem. That day, His Majesty agreed to entrust the mission. However, he said that first he would teach him everything, but he asked to accept one condition. Soon the day of the ball approached. When everything began, the scale of the celebration amazed. As usual, many aristocrats gathered in the castle. Some were relaxing, and some were whirling in the dance. Roan stands to the side. Lucien is nearby. They talk in a quiet voice. The lady is mentally prepared. She had no thought of dying. There is still so much to do in life. I wonder if they managed to sort out the wine. The young man nods. He ordered it to be changed. The girl keeps a secret, how she manages to take everything under her control. The evening before, the heroine did something. She asked the ghosts for help, deciding that they would watch everyone who entered, and left the wine warehouse. Someone will add poison to a barrel of wine. The main thing is to remember which barrel it is, in order to be able to prevent something terrible. Renan played his role, while he did everything that was asked of him. Looking into the crowd, the lady manages to spot a person who is about to cause a commotion in front of her, is the maid Almuth, who looks as if she is uncomfortable. Her hands are shaking. Arjun herself doesn't quite understand why fear is obviously to blame. To say that she is not at all afraid would be a lie. Lucien also understands why the mage is uneasy, even if she has power. After all, her life is in danger. It seems she has put too much on her shoulders. Roan is assured that it is not too late to give up everything. No one knows her backstory. Instead of doing nothing and leaving her fate in the hands of others, she will run herself only forward. She cannot give up. Whatever the cost, the girl will carry out her plan. She wants to help. Even from the first meeting, it seemed to her assistant that despite her fragile body, her spirit was much stronger. A man comes forward. He is incredibly happy to be at a solemn celebration with representatives of the most noble families of the Cartesian Empire. They have all gathered for one reason. He is touched by the fact that everyone has come to congratulate his sister Abentois on her birthday. They wish the emperor a long reign over the Golden Empire. Everyone as one shouts, "It is time to begin the ceremony." The servant is asked to bring a golden goblet. The next to enter the hall is the moon of the empire. The doors swing open before the best swordsman of the country. Shardus walks forward. His Majesty, like his sister, immediately breaks into a smile. His son has always been a source of pride. Nothing to say. Kartazan arrived on time. The ceremony will begin gradually, so as not to drag on too long. The glass ceremony will be held without Esvar. The young man bows his head and kneels, raising a golden goblet called Golden Descendants. Eternal prosperity and wealth will be brought to the empire. Princess Abentois is congratulated on her day and blessed for her eternity. The same is wished for the young man, and the time comes to sip the drink that has been distributed. Inside her heart is beating fast. The blue-eyed girl is afraid the poisoned wine was hidden. To avoid problems, all that remains is to wait for the spy to appear to get rid of the maid. The young man drinks everything to the last drop. All that remains is to convey the blessing to Abentois again. The girl frantically looks around. It is important for her not to miss the moment when the right person appears. It is clear that someone is carefully walking toward the maid. The woman rushes after him. He needs to be caught red-handed. Otherwise, it will not be possible to find out detailed information. Before swinging at the maid, the stranger asks for forgiveness, because he is only following orders. At the last moment, a blade is placed at his neck, and the blue-eyed girl manages to reach it in a matter of seconds. The stranger does not understand why someone is standing behind him. How someone found out about the plans. He did not receive instructions for such a case. It is better not to move, not to make a noise, so as not to attract the attention of the emperor. The heroine orders the man to follow her, carefully placing the blade even closer. She leads him out into the courtyard. It was clearly not in his plans that an ordinary maid could outshine him. The young man decides that he just needs to do as he was taught, sharply hitting the brunette. He makes her drop her weapon and grabs her by the throat with his hand. I didn't want to harm an innocent person, but you can interfere with my task. Roan didn't say she was confident in her abilities, but she wanted to complete the mission without it costing her wriggling out. She hits the solar plexus with all her might. Blind spots exist. Using her foot to kick the blade, Rosentine skillfully flips the stranger over, causing him to fall to the ground. The man begs to let him go alive hoarsely, asking if the woman really decided to kill the man. A voice from her subconscious sounds in her head. If she continues to hesitate, she risks dying. She doesn't understand how to proceed. A chill runs through her insides, and Roan gathers her strength. She never wanted to die in her past life. It cost her a lot to walk a short path, and someone like this mercenary chose the easier path, thinking that it would be more comfortable for him. They both know that one of the two will have to die. There is no other way out. The girl makes up her mind and throws back her weapon just as she is grabbed from behind. Shardus makes her start. Blue-eyed is breathing heavily. She has completely lost her mind. It was worth deviating a little from the plan as everything evaporated. The first thing you have to ask is what happened to the ceremony. It turns out that the main part is over. Small errands were given to Lucina. It's strange to tell the truth, but the lady is truly glad that they arrived to her in time. She is glad that she was not allowed to commit an irreparable act. His Highness has gone away, but it is better not to do this, even if the ball is almost over. The absence may be noticed. Roan promises that he will not do anything else. He will calmly wait for Sir Hoston, who should arrive soon. Lucin was right. The master himself admits this. He had no intention of leaving the maid alone. The blue-eyed one cannot take words seriously. They are bound by a contract. There can be no talk of any empathy. The man can't help but understand how his words sound. He takes the lady by the hand, looking into her eyes. Something inside seems wrong, a little off. A surprised sigh is heard. Hoston appears next to him at the most inopportune moment. Immediately remembering that he was recently called to provide assistance, the knight takes the man on himself. They will deal with him a little later. Her head started to hurt even more than before. Although before the girl did not think that what was happening could have such a strong impact on her physical condition, she turns to the gentleman to understand what he was going to do next. The young man looks around. The night is too beautiful to miss. It seems Roan wants to ask something, but for now she does not dare to remain silent any longer. That is her task. Leaning forward in an elegant position, the hero gently kisses the back of the lady's hand, Inviting her to dance with him, a feeling of déjà vu follows, making her understand. I remember the past once in childhood. Shat became friends with Rosenstein. After that, they never saw each other, although he offered to meet again. A pleasant smile appears on his face, and the girl remembers a story from the distant past, which warms her heart. It is not clear what kind of drastic changes have occurred, but when he behaves so openly, his intentions are easy to understand. The heroine laughs that she might accidentally step on her foot. Of course, it's a joke because the body belongs to the real Argan, and coming from one of the two duchies of the empire, one must possess qualities corresponding to its greatness. Virgo tries to make her professionalism as unobtrusive as possible. The man asks if he will be allowed to lead the dance. After all, he is confident in his strength and abilities. Just for one night, the beauty agrees, the body of another person transmitted through the touch of hands. Such consolation feels much more pleasant than expected. The maid wants to know if she is his first dance partner. He nods, noting that she will also be his last. A feeling that this is an excessive honor for an ordinary maid who has not thought about this. Arjun smiles. She is more surprised by the fact that the young man does not think so. For her, it looks like an attempt at seduction. She admits that in all of Arcana, you won't find such a handsome man, but she wants to clarify something else. She can't stand fickle men, she said in advance. Even when signing the contract that she doesn't provide services at night, the lady just made an exception and played along. The young man lowers his gaze. It never even crossed his mind to disregard the will of the one who set the rules herself. They decide to continue dancing, not to discuss everything that is wrong. It will be fun, the prince picks up Roan. Laughter bursts out of his chest until the master met the witch. No one, not even he himself, had ever dropped everything just to save his life. It was too early to express gratitude, but still. Lucian's displeased voice can be heard. He is already starting to get used to the fact that he finds the prince in an awkward position. It seemed that there were still things to do, so he waited near the entrance to the garden, and when no one appeared, he went off to search. It's already quiet, the young man gives Roan some good advice. She needs to be careful with His Highness. Thus he made more than one lady cry. The woman reminds that she hates fickle men. Throwing off her dress, the heroine goes home. Silence falls, finally. Lucien asks a question that can be answered. Obviously, are you interested, Your Highness? It would be foolish to deny it, because the lady does indeed arouse some kind of interest. But there is nothing to worry about. A beating bird cannot be locked in a birdcage, even if the prince himself wishes it. A young man from the damned imperial family, he certainly shouldn't be talking about what is right and what is wrong. The next morning, the knights and assistant gathered again in the master's office, holding a green bottle in their hands, which shimmered in the sun. There's a knock at the door, and then Roan comes in. She's a little late. It's interesting that on the day's parcel, apparently, the room is discussing the poison that they tried to put in the prince's glass. In order not to waste time, Lucien instructed the alchemist to find out the ingredients. He was able to understand that the poison was called Peruzza's poison, a rare thing. Among the people, the same remedy is called nothing other than the poison of Ma'ana, the one with which 3 creatures of the world were killed, as they said in legends, and almost every person living in the empire knows about this. The poison is quite rare, but this does not mean that it is completely impossible to obtain. The rare venomous snake Peruzza lives in the Uro Desert, and in theory, to obtain the poison, you need its scales, which must be processed for 90 days. Even the alchemist who was consulted earlier said that he saw how pure a substance, when first found in a bottle, could truly be considered something unreal to the world. Something inside her doesn't fit. The lady doesn't understand whether the enemy really obtained the legendary poison solely for the purpose of killing Chartreuse, a man who desires the prince's death more than anything else, a man who possesses not only capital, but also high intellect. The girl calmly says that the backstage will be much easier to uncover than she initially imagined. A smile freezes on her face. The gentleman nods. It has become clear to him how they will proceed next. If this is someone who can go against him and has strong patronage, then in the country itself and in the whole world, you won't find anyone more unique. The story takes an interesting turn. The knight wants to say that there is no need for the maid to go with them. The one she caught already knows how to interrogate, so he must tell everything he knows. For some reason, Costan feels strange. It feels like the last incident has never been forgotten, and he has never seen His Highness seduce anyone based on everything he needs to find out more. Earlier, the discussion had reached a point of no return. According to the alchemist, this is not the type of poison that is removed immediately after ingestion. One can live peacefully for an indefinite period of time without suspecting anything. The incubation period is a week. As soon as the effect begins, the person falls into a coma. Then, of course, he quickly rots 3 days maximum, and the person dies. So everyone would think that the young man died because of the imperial curse. The poison must be activated. Even after it spreads throughout the body, a catalyst is needed. The one they captured is called Nird, apparently from Uro. It took him about 3 years to bribe the maid. He was actually hired only to eliminate the maid and then ensure the death of the prince. In order to report on the mission, a meeting was planned with the stated persons. Nord himself found himself trapped, was a nanny to witness the death of his master. Despite the fact that Perusa's poison does not kill the one who takes it instantly, this was a pretext to get rid of the young man immediately. The stranger still doesn't know the truth, but this circumstance won't push him to naive assistance. Argan asks him to trust her. I specialize in how to find out information. Entering the cell, the woman asks to remove the blindfold from Nord and orders him to raise his head. Roan looks around, turning to the knights. She says, "Everyone come out of the cell." The woman doesn't understand if she's okay, but when the prince asks, she just nods. She has a more important task ahead of her, to do everything she can to find out information. They are going to tell the scum some funny news. I wonder why he has reached this point, why his fate is so hard. The man begins to speak with displeasure, using the official language of Uro, noting that everyone around him is pathetic. They are insatiable and only care about keeping their bellies full, no matter what nonsense is said, because in the end, he should not be touched. Lucen comes forward. He explains that Peru's poison does not kill instantly. In other words, the young man could not have witnessed the death of His Highness in the first place. Whoever the stranger served this man had planned to get rid of him from the very beginning. All that remained was to wait for the moment when he would return to report on his failure. The hero starts screaming that he doesn't believe what was said. He continues to persist. The girl looks around. A ghost has grabbed the man. He looks about 6 years old, clearly an evil spirit that is trying to control the mind. Roan turns to the prince. She calmly asks to leave the room for a while. She has a good idea of what can be done, but for this, she needs to be alone with him. The girl is sure of what needs to be done. Memories of that incident with Court, when she was captured, pop up in her head. The same thing happens to him. Most likely nothing terrible will happen. The most important thing is to act with extreme caution. The Virgo reports that she sees spiritual intervention. She needs a minute to calm it down. The prince remains silent. The decision will remain. His assistants think that he will not agree, but he has completely different thoughts on this matter. He comes closer and takes the lady by the chin. There is a fire burning in her eyes. The blonde asks if the heroine will do what she promised to do this time. Roan trusts she will be able to do what she plans. Let her know when you finish. The hero promises that if something happens, he will definitely return with a sword in his hands, and the cell door closes. Silence hangs inside. The lady approaches closer. It's better to get straight to the main matter, because initially they plan to catch the employer. He wants the prince dead, and therefore one failed attempt will not mean that it is worth giving up. Earlier, Njord said that they had agreed on a place for a secret meeting. For the report, he just needed to take Shartus and the knights to that place. That would be more than enough. Naturally, the young man does not want to cooperate, so most of the time he remains silent or resists. He cannot trust there is no one to trust. In this case, the best solution would be to make a deal. The lady asks for help, and in exchange she will free the soul of the unjustly killed child. An emotional switch is triggered inside the man. He understands that this is the first time this is being said, and it is about a boy. As expected, Njord shouts that no one can touch his family. The young lady did not even try to look for information. It was easier for her to understand how to get those strings that could be pulled. Previously, the girl was asked who she was. She can see ghosts. Her hand gently touches the boy. Her hair is scarlet like a flame, a color reminiscent of the sunset in Uro. He reacts to the words, which means not all is lost yet. The boy had not yet forgotten himself. Suddenly, a desert was visible. He wanted to jump away. Perhaps all this was a dream. The unfortunate child became a ghost too early. He suffers a lot. Naturally, the spirits of people who died carefree rarely remain in the world. Usually, they go to rest, which means we have to learn their story. Stepping forward, the woman introduces herself as a witch who can see the dead. She has not come to tell fortunes. For now, the lady is only trying to blackmail Su. They both want to protect something important. Roan is also a living person, so she can give one interesting piece of advice. For the sake of the suffering child, it is better to accept the offer not to leave everything as it is. It was previously discussed that, as expected, a catalyst was still needed. Otherwise, the poison would not be activated and would remain in the body. Later, the lady developed several theories about what the enemy was planning to do. The knight was surprised that the boy had been persuaded. Even during the interrogation, he hadn't uttered a word about it. He had to play dirty. The secret meeting was scheduled for the next day, so he needed to decide on an escort right away. The girl needs someone who has enough time and energy. It would be better if this is someone with good skills. Shardus has someone in mind, he points to himself. Roan jumps up to clearly refuse the secret meeting itself. Implies a trap. The meeting place is far from the Imperial Road. This is a very risky step. One must be extremely careful. The fact that one managed to find out information does not mean anything. Even one wrong step, and the master's safety will be in direct danger. The prince shrugs, not seeing the problem. There is nothing to answer. The words are true. If we go together, we can easily discover the trap. The only problem is how His Grace is going to hide his famous face. The conversation has to be interrupted. Lady Aron Mold is heading towards them through the garden. She did not say that she was going to come. It all happened at the last minute. The girl is taken to the gentleman immediately. She apologizes for the sudden request for an audience, but she has important business, and it turns out that the woman wants to take Rowan, such a devoted servant. Everyone gathered is surprised, except Argan herself. It seems she meant borrow, but mixed up the words. The weather has been sunny lately. I would like to take a look around the castle a little. The daughter of an influential county who does not know the way is not allowed to just wander around the area. Rumors have reached her about a confidant. The maid, of course, could have been requested through another separate request, but since the matter concerns the master's servant, it is necessary to obtain the right to do so. Rowan smiles. The prince is a generous soul, because as she said earlier, asking for permission is not at all necessary. Aron is happy that she was spared the trouble. Mold is the second daughter of a count who, thanks to her acting skills and flair, was able to become a socialite immediately after her debut. Her peak of fame came at the time when rumors began to circulate about an affair with Chartus. The attention of high society was riveted on her. People began to wonder why the capable girl could not achieve the status of a countess. The reason for this is Archie, the eldest son. He is a strong contender. Initially, Argan even sent a letter of condolence on behalf of her father. Everyone was aware that the count's condition was worsening. He was on the verge of death. It was clear why Chartus's maid was needed. The woman needed the prince's patronage. The day passed unnoticed. The girl was noticeably more pleased to spend time in company. The maid will return in 2 days, leaving on behalf of His Highness. When the servant leaves, the assistant standing nearby reports that the maiden is in a closer relationship with the prince than expected. The lady interrupts him. I have already said, Chartus is an instrument for achieving the ambitions of the father. If the maid is special to him, this will be a certain thing, because then the master will be weak to her words. This can bring a lot of benefits. If you pull the strings correctly, the woman wants to get an empire, not love or fame. Chartus has made a disguise for himself. His hair has changed color, and there is a mask on his face. It is too late to worry about the fact that they were not prepared enough. The beauty accepts everything as it is. The young man starts an unexpected conversation. He is interested in what the lady has to do with Mold. It's not such a big secret. The girl can share information. Given the circumstances, it appears that the opponent is a fairly agile person, and the countess obviously has considerable influence in social circles. A woman sometimes wants to be able to use her power. What is needed is not assumptions, but knowledge of what is really happening, and accurate predictions will not hurt at all. The pledge is the gentleman's favor. It says that with that person, they were never lovers. High society loves to spread gossip. Our relationship was always just a deal. The carriage accidentally hits a bump. The maiden falls on top of the young man while they are talking. Injured, sitting next to her, looks away with displeasure. Soon they report that they finally managed to arrive at their destination. They went far from the imperial road. Getting out, the lady, first of all, looks around. At first glance, it doesn't seem like there are that many problems there, but the whole street is teeming with poverty and misery. The people around have absolutely nothing, sleeping right on the street. Something inside her was turning over. Since her rebirth in the new world, Arjun had never thought about such a thing. She only hurried to enjoy the present and what it gave. Personal comfort always came first for her. She never even thought of throwing away what was put into her hands, and the desire to take responsibility for lives seemed like arrogance on a different level. An extra reminder of the situation only serves as a reminder that Yoon was stupid. She should stop introspecting and return to reality. Ideas are recreated. For example, a girl can do something that was previously beyond her power. Two people are heading forward down the street. The meeting place is not disguised. Soon, they find themselves in an underground pub, surrounded by people laughing loudly, many of whom have no control over their speech or body language. This place is a true refuge from the eyes of the empire. Finally, the time has come. Jerd, who has been feeling uncomfortable all this time, begins to look even more worried. The chapter cannot be missed, otherwise everything will be in vain. Approaching the next table, the man throws gold coins and asks to leave, so that no one will disturb him. He goes straight to the mercenary. It's time to have a serious conversation. On the face, of course, there is a hood that hides the hair. This is the attacker who forced you to do the dirty work. Let's hear how you did it. The girl tries to listen to their conversation, but due to the great distance, the words come in fragments. Soon the stranger loses his temper. In any case, he will give the promised reward she needs to follow him. Roan turns to the prince, who immediately nods. He will go to the main exit, while Injured stalls for time, the master, and Hostain will block his escape route. For the plan to work, the client must be caught. Roan jumps up as soon as the two leave the room. She hurries outside, opening the door, freezes because in front of her appears a body. It lies in blood. The man whispers in a hoarse voice, "You missed him." With the last of his strength, he raises his hand and holds out the catalyst that had been on his neck all this time. It needs to be studied in more detail. The information could be quite valuable. Njerd begins to lose the last bits of reality, his eyes gradually closing. He absolutely must find a doctor, but it seems nothing can help him. Even if the situation ultimately ended tragically, the leader escaped, the mercenary completed his task. He asks to free his unfortunate child, who knows no peace being in the form of a ghost. Roan looks at him sadly. The promise will be fulfilled, she cannot refuse it. There are strange feelings inside. There is nothing to sympathize with. Just like Yoon in his past life, the man tried his best for a person who came from the poor streets. There is no better life. The lady can only help the one who has passed away with what she has. The darkness of Gima, that child has become much thicker. It is not at all difficult to notice. There is no time left. Action must be taken. They turn to the witch. It is clear that she needs a little time to fully recover, but it is too dangerous to be on the streets. The prince is in a hurry. He can't let the boy become like Court, although nothing special is happening, and there is no desire to talk to a ghost right in front of Shardus. On that festive night, if he was sincere, he had sympathy, but it was unclear whether he was completely in love with the noblewoman. However, it did not matter. They would soon say goodbye. Even a fleeting crush could turn out to be a problem. The girl remembers that they agreed with Njerd about one favor, so she asks to give her a little time. What she is going to do is something only sorcerers can do. As soon as the prince leaves, fearing that he will be cursed, the heroine turns to Gemma. She does not know a specific method for calming the ghost, but based on the experience of her past and current life, the ghosts she encountered were divided into two types. Some have lost their way, and some have lost themselves. Evil spirits who have lost themselves are left to wander along the edge of the other world. The boy does not deserve such a fate. During her first meeting with the young man, Argan clearly felt that the ghost's memories seemed to be mixed with his own. The maiden touched his head, asking him to remember where the place was that he loved so much, where he would like to return. There is a sense of the desert, everything flows together. Memories and feelings of Jima, occasional obvious melancholy days of fun games, with friends and indefinable affection. One can see the boundless sky, the shining world like a carpet woven from gold. The beloved homeland is truly beautiful. It evokes admiration. Tears appear in the boy's eyes. Soon he begins to sob. His soul has been touched. He has been cold and lonely for a very long time. Finally, he wants to get something more. The heroine carefully touches it with her other hand. Magic gathers around its time to return home, to stop suffering, wandering around the world and not understanding what to do next. Hostin went to get the carriage. Roan finished everything and came to the prince. For some reason, she was also crying. It was no longer possible to control her emotions. This was a side effect of the spell she asked to go. The young man asks if Yoon wouldn't mind if she were at least a little comforted. Her face flushes. She really is fine. These aren't even her emotions, but those of a third party. There is silence, the thought that the boy is again behaving in a way that is completely inappropriate for his image. He will have to give in, there is nothing he can do about it. The lady relaxes because she is being hugged tightly. There are still feelings from Jima inside. She wants to hope that everything worked out. She wants him to never experience suffering, only warmth and joy. Soon the heroine opens her eyes. She does not understand where she is. It turns out that they are on the street of the city fortress. They will soon arrive back at the castle. Everything around shines with luxury. Everything that indicates wealth is much more familiar to the girl. Although it seems unreal, maybe everyone knows what is happening outside the capital, and only Rosenstein was indifferent. Arjun was irresponsible. The continent of Akron was still in a period of endless wars and gold coins as currency. Of course, this was logical, given the number of nobles and emperors. Despite this, the gap between rich and poor is huge. The blue-eyed girl did not think that the same problem exists in her country. Inside, there is a feeling of shame and wild discomfort. The Empire of Carthage is considered golden. It is interesting to see what they had to sacrifice for prosperity and what the sources of their exorbitant wealth and power are based on. Soon they returned back. They were met by Lucien, who was glad that they managed to return safe and sound. The gentleman nods when he says that he learned about everything in general terms from Kostan. The prince turns to Roan. He does not want to leave her alone with his thoughts, which can parasitize regarding Njurda. There was no opportunity to do anything. That's how it all ended. The most important thing is that you managed to get the hint. The maid, as its holder, must be rewarded according to her merits. If there is a desire in her, you just need to express it. The gaze falls on the stone that is on the palm, given the position of the Arjans. Even if you find a desire, it will be feigned. The lady has everything she could ever dream of. I wonder what His Highness felt after visiting the outright slums. It was hard for the maid to return to the streets of poverty, but what bothered her most was the fact that she had forgotten about everything. She was ashamed. It made her sick inside. The girl will take a risk and wish for the master to change the country as much as possible. Let the light from the palace reach the darkest corners of the empire. After all this, the heroine looks very tired. Her clothes are completely wrinkled. There are bruises under her eyes before going to bed. Lucien thanks. He can say that there are countless reasons the girl is unique. It is clear that he also has his secrets. At first, the maiden found the young man very suspicious. She had been raised as the duke's successor, but at the same time, he was a political figure whose name the lady did not even know. He had been by the prince's side for over 10 years. The lady wanted to ask a question. She already had. Some guesses. She looked at the hero's eyes. Green pupils in Akron are a rarity. Such a bright color, you don't often see them. The empire despises and fears such a pronounced color. The officials are probably against it, but despite this, the young man remains in his position as assistant. The lady is pleased to have a guy who is so good in her debt, but to be honest, he doesn't owe her anything. Roan found something interesting in the slums, but she is not interested in it. When she returns to her place, she will try to find something that she can actually do on her own. In her hands is the catalyst of the problem, a bright emerald-colored stone. The lady looks at it again and again, but cannot understand what to do next. She felt that thinking together would not help her find the answer, so she recklessly assured that she would figure it out on her own. This was one of her biggest mistakes. The stone has an unusual surface finish, which has been encountered before a voice is heard behind her. A ghost is standing behind her. Gertrude heard that an interesting thing was found, so she came to take a look. The woman laughs when asked if she knows the origin of the jewel. Mary is the main trendsetter of the high society court of her era. It is surprising that she was also a member of the imperial family. 180 years ago, the precious stone gained great popularity. Then it was called the Blessing of Eternity. Virgo remembers her childhood 17 years ago, when she accidentally fell asleep. A woman woke her up saying that she could get sick because she was not in bed. Her attention was drawn to a stone on her neck. For the first time, she encountered something so extraordinary. Blue-eyed asked where she could buy the item. Even the lady didn't know, because in her lifetime, the acquisition had been just as difficult. It cost a decent amount. The funny thing is that during that period of her life, the heroine devoted herself entirely to politics. If her former lover had not given her the stone, she would never have attached any significance to it. They say that a sacred power is hidden inside promising eternal blessing. The girl was asked many times to treat the brooch with all seriousness, but then the beauty did not understand whether the thing was really so valuable, and the sincere feelings of that lover remained inside the stone to protect it. Blue Eyes remembers that this decoration is very rare in this world, since the material itself is expensive, and people capable of processing it did not have even a short-term interest in it, so it was discontinued. It is absurd that the unfortunate stone had sunk too deep into Gertrude's soul to remain forgotten any longer. She decided to make a minor character in a tragic love story a real museum of the era. The lady gathered everyone to stage a tragedy of dramatic and passionate love. They have a fatal stone and a romantic poem. I wonder what could have happened and what people's reaction would have been. Gertrude didn't lift a finger, but she stirred up high society with just one story and made an unnamed gem the latest fashion trend of an entire era. People are easy to manipulate. The girl jumps up. She caught what she needed. The beginning of the thread is fashion. The woman wanted to do her a favor and give a couple of tips, but then the heroine jumps out the door. My heart is pounding inside, Injured said to study the catalyst. But this catalyst is actually a blessing that caused a stir 180 years ago, but then sank into oblivion. Once such a stone has appeared, and somewhere there lives a jeweler capable of processing it, it is necessary to contact the person, preferably as quickly as possible. Everything will work out, involving those who are especially interested in the movement of the wealth of the empire's valuables, namely secular society. The girl bursts into the prince's presence and says that she has found the right way it can help them. The plan is to first give the stone to Lady Moldy. Milady must send a letter saying that the gentleman has a gift that will be presented officially. It cannot be allowed to be sent off without reason. Everything will happen at the Margus meeting. The woman could not refuse. She had heard that Teresa's salon was famous for being the most luxurious and most visited in the capital. This is exactly what you would expect from a place of authority, an ancient family. With a deep history, the time has come. Mold has arrived. She is introduced, announcing her arrival. Before the heroine appears, Teresa Viscount Theodore, and daughter of Countess Eris, the stone will be handed over as a sign of His Majesty's favor. An excellent chance to use it. The gathering will be the perfect place to highlight the moment of its presentation to the lady who already understands that it will happen in public, but does not know what the final plan is. The people who gather around will certainly be surprised by what they see, because the brooch signifies proof of the complete unconditional favor that comes from the prince. The meaning completed in a beautiful green gemstone. Eternal blessing, the maid will have to ask, to listen to a short story to make it a little more clear. Once upon a time, there lived a devoted knight and a duchess. They loved each other deeply, but it so happened that the knight had to leave his beloved because of an unknown incurable disease. In his last days, he sold all his jewelry and hand-polished a beautiful stone. On his last night, he gave her a gift saying that the jewelry would protect her instead of him. The girls in the audience would also like to be awarded such an honor, but only Mold was so lucky, and whispers began to spread that a lady so unique should not be left alone. Everyone wanted to acquire something similar. Teresa was one of the first to learn about the new fashionable thing she called Theo, saying that they needed to get something similar so that the thing would definitely end up on her daughter's neck. She ordered to find the craftsman who made it, and the hunt for treasure began. A man in a hooded cloak that hides his face is talking to the customer. He made sure the young man drank the glass and got rid of the pawn on the spot. There are 3 days left for the poison to take effect. If that happens, everything will go like clockwork. The item was successfully transferred. No one knows what is in God's gift. It remains to be seen whether the prince chosen by God will be able to live up to the ancient legend and survive. The poison takes effect within 3 days. If the young man does not die within this time, the instigator will realize that the plan has failed and will move on to a more elaborate one. The woman is obliged to find a clue to the second plot. The ghosts are aware of what is happening. Everyone is busy chasing the eternal blessing they are looking for, the master who processed this precious stone. Gertrude takes credit for teaching the girl the power of stories, while others are against it, believing that they also helped when night fell in the hall, and they were about to poison the gentleman. The blue-eyed girl smiles. She would never have managed without helpers. Argan thinks next time she will also turn to them if she suddenly needs to learn something new or needs help. The heroine doesn't understand what to do next. How to find the beginning of the thread to the second conspiracy? She would like to quickly find out all the details. Raynon notices that her friend has no face. A lot is eating her up. The young man, it turns out, hasn't learned anything. He says that Martel will appear. He once again asks the girl to study Mora's ivory, no matter how much he thinks there is something suspicious. Diva remembers that before he was most interested in the closet, it was quite unexpected that Herman found the thing. However, Argan does not see any problems because it was spoken about in the legend. The ivory actually exists. Its owner died for no known reason, but no one in the world knows about it. Mr. Martel wanted the chest to be found for him when he didn't have one yet. He raged, got angry at the servants. He tried to find the chest in a special place, but according to the residents, the thing suddenly disappeared one day, and the owner was found dead. Apparently, someone got there first. The servant reports that this is not true. The dead man did not show any signs of violent death, or any wounds. This may be related to the sea, from the legends that Mura crossed. The maid reflects that among Bishutean's aphorisms that speak of the sea of the southern kingdom, there is one that is the most famous. After that day, they gathered the scientists and ordered them to find out about other places where Mura's ivory appeared. Surprisingly, in fact, all the owners of the ivory met the same end. They all died, as if the box was cursed. The strangest thing is that everyone they tried to save with its help miraculously survived. The Marquis swears that he is telling the truth. The man spent his entire life searching for the thing, and all he found was a pathetic piece of paper with a life exchange diagram drawn by some madman. The girl jumps up and asks to see the diagram, but is refused. The truth must be revealed, otherwise the girl might make things worse. They said that Mura's ivory went to the second prince. Martel asks to be taken to the gift. He must see it with his own eyes. The beauty sneaks into the archives of the Leinster Palace under the cover of night. They go to the treasure warehouse. It is there that the thing must be found. The lady had no idea that something would be hidden in such a place. Out of fear that the hard-won and cherished things might be destroyed, a triple mechanism was installed. Even as a disembodied ghost, Martel was unable to enter. Over the past several hundred years, everyone who knew about the hidden room's existence had already died, and no one could take care of it inside. The woman decides that the time has come to see the treasure so precious to her heart. The beauty's eyes widen in size. The lady does not understand how everything remained in order. She needs to call someone to restore order. Her gaze turns to the piece of paper lying on the table. It seems to be exactly what the lady was looking for. It has warped and nothing has been damaged by the humidity, a common occurrence when insects devour everything at the slightest relaxation in maintaining order. The heroine peers at the diagram to understand what the thing that makes people die. Looks like she doesn't understand what is written there at all. It all seems incredibly strange to her. Obviously, the man will have to explain everything in detail. There is no other way out in this case, otherwise the girl will not be able to understand anything. Soon after the heroine receives the explanation, she draws a clearer outline with lipstick, doing it directly on a huge golden mirror, which causes the Marquis's heart to stop. Mura's ivory casket has two openings. If you fill the cup visible in the upper opening with alcohol through one of them and activate the casket, a special medicinal component will be mixed into the alcohol. Panacea is not legendary at all, as is already becoming clear. It is simply a convenient device that was made clever. The problem lies in the activation process. In order to start the mechanism and for it to work flawlessly, you need to pull down part of the cup's stem, having first inserted your hand inside, and this is where the problem begins. The chest's mechanism is activated, and the vent for the medicinal component opens. The beauty looks at her diagram and asks the Marquis a question about what justifies everything. When the movement begins, poisoned games hidden inside the chest are released. However, this part of the device does not work immediately. First, a sufficient amount of the drug must be introduced into the drink. And only then, when the person holding the glass has relaxed their guard as much as possible, are the poisoned needles pierced into the upper arm. There is a time before drinking wine is prohibited. The gears of the needle mechanism are in the chest. As long as someone reaches out, you can find and turn off the mechanism. The Marquis objects. You don't understand. You can't even look in there. According to Argan's plan, they will have to search for everything they need, blindly doing this within a limited time. There must be an easier way the second prince can get rid of the chest. Perhaps it was necessary to refuse the thing, but only the Duchess herself knows that the young man will never dare to throw away the thing. On the contrary, if he finds out that there is an effective medicine, he will get it by any means necessary. Once again, the heroine notices similarities. Inside the man are hidden feelings of a person ready to grasp at any straw for the sake of the family. They know each other. The second prince, not the type to act recklessly and make a senseless sacrifice upon learning that there was poison inside, would find a way to extract the healing substance without causing harm to anyone. Roan promises herself that she will be there to help the hero save one person. She will definitely not give up being in the hall with the others. The brunette looks pale. She does not understand how to properly build a plan of action. Shardus attracts her attention and asks her directly what she would like. Something strange immediately feels inside his gaze is too inquisitive to bring her to her senses. Blue Eyes isn't sure her words are what he wants to hear. She'd like to examine the chest that was smuggled into Hermon County. There are doubts for another reason. So far, everything seemed to be fine, but what happens next directly concerns Eswari. The young man stands up and stops next to the girl. He gently kisses her hand, asking if she had a nightmare last night. He is flattered by her intent gaze. It would be better to add words to this and speak out. A storm is brewing inside. The girl wandered the castle's dungeons all night to save one life. It is logical that anyone would mistake her for a person in terrible condition. Roan can't stand it. She jumps up, and although they apologize to her, it doesn't matter. The lady loudly and clearly expresses her desire. She asks to see what the young man brought that day. There is one death in one life. This interchangeable aphorism of Bishop and Ivory can somehow relate to a conspiracy. The man calmly asks if this is something real. Initially, the heroine lost control of herself and began the story in a raised voice. But the girl wondered if the prince himself had figured out that he needed to find the chest. He admits that it all started because of a legend they said that, in the south of Akran, in the sea area around Byrdon, a chest floated up. Rowan screams, all because of the Marquis who is nearby. The man finds the story suspicious, because Mura's bone is not an enchanted treasure and is not connected to God in any way. It could not have simply floated out of the sea. What worries him most is the specific location of its appearance. Blue Eyes doesn't understand how she could not know that such a valuable treasure appeared in Byrdon. It belongs to the Duchy of Argan. Any cargo must pass through the lands under the supervision of Rosentine, but in the memories, there is not a single report about the chest. It turns out that someone smuggled the treasure into the sea, doing it illegally. As soon as the lady finishes the job, she will need to return and check everything. Count Herman is one of the suspects, but the prince doesn't think so since he went on his orders. Just as the crown prince's faction's aristocracy is led by Almoth, the second prince's faction is led by Herman, and the fact that he personally sent out to search for an important figure means that Shardus is in great despair. Many say that since the main political opponent Eswar is unconscious, the easiest thing left is to sit on the throne, but this cannot be done. Even if a man becomes emperor, he needs a dispersal of power. This requires the strength of his brother. The members of the Cartezan family cannot oppose the imperial law. The young man asked Chartreuse to cope with the task, to wait for the end of the imperial line and the era of the monarchy so that no one else would suffer. The conspirator is close. He foresaw that the young man would desperately fight for Esver's life. The lady has an idea. She asks to take her to the ivory to try to do something. They cannot miss the legendary panacea obtained with such difficulty. Evil satisfying its ambitions by using other people's weaknesses. They go down. The hero takes Rosentine to where she asked. Everything was going smoothly until the moment when the girl's foot completely by accident slipped down. The next staircase turned out to be too slippery. The girl begins to get irritated because she truly does not understand how the castle is arranged. There are too many secret rooms in which one can easily get lost in the first minute. Some time passes, and they finally manage to reach Shardus's secret vault. In front of them is Mura's chest. The Duchess needs to rest a little before she can begin to admire it. Hostan is dissatisfied because even trusted people are rarely allowed into the room. The Marquis stands next to the treasure, his eyes lighting up brightly, because in front of him is what he has dedicated half his life to. The girl can't help but smile. Everyone got their own. He didn't explain his passionate desire to find the thing. There must have been reasons for it that will never be revealed. The heroine decides that it is time to show what kind of method she has discovered. She has previously taken care to do everything correctly, patting herself on the cheeks to cheer herself up a little. She gets to her feet. A woman is about to demonstrate the disassembly of ivory without examining the inside, and without the necessary amount of information. The thing seems ordinary, if not beautiful. The incredibly exquisite casket is not so simple. The lady knows everything there is to know. For correcting the mistake, it will devour someone else's life. The Duchess thinks that it is just a monster, frozen in anticipation, its mouth wide open. Once Rosentine has memorized the device in the treasury, there is no turning back. She must go to the very end. The heroine touches the cabinet with her hand, but nothing happens. It looks like she will have to use both hands at once. She has no other choice. She turns to Costan and was just about to ask for help when the prince appears behind her. He wants to know if the lady has a special antidote, since she is at risk of being poisoned. Some kind of spell that can disarm the trap would be very useful, because it will help protect lives. The young man's eyes sparkle. He becomes more stern because he understands that if the lady has nothing, she is going to risk herself to understand how it works at all. Rosenstein appreciates the concern, but this is too much. Doubts creep into the heroine's head. For the prince, she should only be a witch. But in fact, they are strangers to each other, and he not only behaves warily with the stranger, but also worries without reasons. It becomes clear that all this applies to the lady too, because she was going to save the prince in order to ensure the safety of court and her family in return. It seemed that the girl could have found another way to keep her sister safe. She was the one who was going to avoid throwing herself into the abyss of life's events, but rather live quietly below the grass. Surprisingly, the incidents happened one after another, as if the heroine was simply deprived of the opportunity to ask such a question. From the moment she heard about the poisoning, her memories are hazy. Something nudged Rosenstein when she met Gertrude, like a voice that wanted the girl to go forward. She tries to throw away unnecessary thoughts. It's better not to think about it. Although theoretically aware of how the chest works, Roan brought Martel with her simply to keep him as a backup. The young man looks at the lady and suggests that they try together. She screams and tries to refuse. Although it is worth trying, something unexpected can always happen, but he believes that everything will be fine. He will not let the efforts go to waste. Exhaling, the heroine gives in and gives her consent. Since he says so, there is no point in continuing to argue. All the preliminary preparations have been completed. All that remains is to begin. Blue Eyes assures herself that she will cope perfectly, just as it should be. She decides that first, she will explain in general terms everything about the chest, so that the prince also understands. Ivory is not a gift from God. It is merely a mechanism with an extremely ingenious activation device, and although the reason for this is that it is called special. It is a miracle panacea. What makes it seem mythical are two spells that were cast in advance. The heroine takes a candle to demonstrate one of them. The spell prevents unnecessary interference from the outside. Nothing other than human flesh will pass through the hole. Everything was arranged so that the needles would pierce bare skin quite cleverly. The man was definitely a genius. A spell that protects the opening itself, a kind of protective magic, aimed at preserving the integrity of the chest, can protect against both human force and the influence of natural phenomena. However, this won't be able to protect individual areas inside the chest, and this became the key to solving the problem. Ultimately, the only way to act is with bare hands. The man will pull the cup simultaneously into Rosentine. The Marquis signals that it is time to begin. The girl nods and turns to the prince. They simultaneously grab the chest. The mechanism starts up, a quiet creak is heard. Then it is noticeable that the gears inside begin to turn. Hostin stands to the side to observe what happens next. The poison begins to spread. There is quite a bit of it there, but the medicine is definitely starting to mix in. It remains death in exchange for life. There are only 3 areas from which the poisonous needle can emerge. The first place is at 11 o'clock, the second at 12 o'clock, and the third at 1 o'clock. The method for finding their exact location is quite simple. You need to look for the place carefully, trying one option after another. The beauty is trying to find the right gear. She should turn it with her fingertip and check if there is a cross-shaped recess on its inner side. Martel will use her eyes to help further. After finding the right place, all that remains is to break the thin plate. The first one at 11 o'clock turns out to be unsuccessful, and the poison continues to flow into the wine. The medicine is mixed in faster than expected. It turns out to be a failure for 12 hours. It's not the same either. The last place remains. Roan extends his hand forward. The Marquis shouts that the girl is aiming incorrectly. She needs to go a little to the right, intuition. Tells her that there is barely a minute left. The cup is almost full. She needs to stop continuing, is risky. At the last moment, as the maiden wanted to give up her palm, she realized that she had found the last needle. She did not have enough strength to break it. The prince came to the rescue, who quickly got his bearings. Extending his hand, the man asks the beauty to help him find the stand with the needle, and he in turn breaks it with ease, and a bright light begins to glow inside the chest. It seems that everything worked out. Lutzen can't come to his senses because he was very scared. Hostin knew that they would cope. The girl is sad. She thought that she was ready for any scenario. But if she failed, which she was so close to, she would lose not only herself. The young man reassures you shouldn't forget your feet after everything is over. Your head hurts badly. Although he didn't know that her decision was such a great risk, Roan would not let something like this go unpunished. The day ended happily. It was time to raise a glass of wine to him. Hostin plays chess with the master. The prince wins time after time. He is asked to lose, doing this at least once. He does not understand. Raises an eyebrow, asks why this is necessary at all. The unfortunate pawn was about to die. The entire small empire was on the verge of destruction. He wanted to turn the piece into a queen, but it seemed that even this time, he would definitely be out of luck. Roan watches the game from the sidelines. For now, this is all that is under her control. She feels sorry for the pawn that got into such a risky game. She takes steps only under someone else's control. If something goes wrong, the piece will have to die for the king, in which case Hostin is considered a god, since he has been leading the game from the very beginning. The prince asks her to imagine that he created a pawn specifically to protect the imperial family, but she refuses such a fate as a pawn. I wonder how he will persuade her to follow her destiny. The man shrugs his shoulders. He will not try, whether she wants it or not. In any case, no matter what is undertaken, a pawn remains a pawn. It does not play a significant enough role. The atmosphere in the room is not very pleasant. Everything is going well, if compared to the previous life. What is happening is reminiscent of a corporate party with the executive directors. Roan can't forget one moment that made her startle earlier. The girl was called by name. It can't be that the gentleman has a special attitude towards her. It's better to put aside unnecessary thoughts again. The blue-eyed woman examines the bottle that is in front of her on the table. The wine will go straight to the crown prince. It was originally intended for him. There is chaos inside. Too many doubts, Too many shortcomings. If you look back at everything that happened, then all of this is somehow connected with Ezwar. All the evidence leads perfectly in the same direction. If the truth is hidden there, then we need to get to the bottom of it. The girl thanks Martel. He handled everything perfectly and was even able to help personally. Watching the girl stirred up old memories. They concern a woman from the Arjun clan. The man remembers why he tried to find the chest. Tens and hundreds of hours spent alone in the castle make one forget about one's past life. But thanks to Rosentine, everything has changed. He has managed to resurrect long-forgotten memories. Obviously, all that remains is to go to Esvar. The girl asks what he is like as a person. They were watching him. The young man is truly unique. It's strange that two children received a golden blessing. His name speaks for itself. Chartreuse is considered the light that shines upon the empire at night, and his brother is the next son of the entire arcana. Everyone in the country has heard of his brilliant mind, the likes of which are hard to find. The lady had already seen the young man before, but she had no time for him at the time. She was busy with other, more important matters. You can't judge a book by its cover, especially when it concerns an important person in the political world. The casket was delivered to the master by Herman, and the panacea was supposed to go to his brother. The young man had already noticed that he had personally ordered him to try to find Mura's casket. If this is all true, the blue-eyed woman wants to know what about Esvar himself. Silence falls, and the lady realizes that she was right in her doubts. She shouldn't have raised the topic because in the end, it could provoke the prince's wrath. Rosenstein doesn't allow herself to back down. She has to get to the truth. Oddly enough, the blonde grins he will take her with him because a person can only be judged in person. When Cartezan began to fall ill, he was forced to move to a residence located some distance from the main palace of Lenstow. It's almost summer outside. A pleasant breeze blows in her face, which makes her perk up. The lady still doesn't understand why her prince is dragging her along with him. She thought it was just an impulse or a joke. Lucina is asked about the rumors. So far, none of the aristocracy has found the jeweler they need. The brunette asks the girl if she is nervous ahead of the meeting. It's a rare sight. Even the master's assistant is a little nervous. She's just a maid, she'll stand aside. But His Highness is quite inquisitive. Virgo understands that she really should be careful. Even though he is bedridden, he is a member of the ruling family. Moreover, he is Chartes's brother. No one knows what he will notice. There is no guarantee that the young man is as merciful as the younger Carthazan, and it is unknown what his reaction will be once the truth comes out that Roan is a sorceress. It is reported that the carriage has finally arrived at its destination, as evidenced by the huge palace on which the coat of arms of the imperial family is visible. The lady cannot help but admire wherever she looks. It is very beautiful. This place is completely different from the Chartis Palace, in which everything is more pompous, done more simply, but with sophistication. It seems that the owner of the residence should be just as elegant. The girl is helped out of the carriage as something happens that she could not have predicted. Another guest has arrived. He is from the Argan family. The knights greet the moon of the empire. The woman does not understand why everything happened this way. If her father finds out, everything will be over. She immediately jumps back into the carriage. In addition to what she inherited from her past life, the maiden inherited half of her talents from her father. The resourceful man lives up to his title as the brightest mind of the empire. He recognizes his daughter. It won't be possible to deceive the master if they suddenly meet face to face. Suddenly an idea arises. You need to try to avoid Argan being driven into a corner. Rosentine lights up with motivation. Roan lowers her head, letting her hair cover her face. They want to ask her if everything is okay. It is obvious that something is wrong, but she says through clenched teeth that nothing happened and she will be fine. The knights are a completely different story. It's easy to deceive the squad. They were never directly subordinate to Argan Jr., and they need to avoid their father's notice. It's not an easy task, but it's entirely doable. The lady doesn't know how to explain her behavior to those who came with her. She mumbles something about a bad aura when she is interrupted. A man approaches His Highness. The Crown Prince's Chamberlain, Rodenmenger, approaches and apologizes for keeping them waiting. As soon as the preparations are complete, the Master and Heimt are escorted inside. It was obvious that Eswer still couldn't move, but he seemed to be feeling a little better. and even asked if there was any free time for political science lessons. They don't want to let the old man rest at all. He is the only qualified person he asks not to take the blame. The prince is still very young. There is no point in locking your heart. Roan stands to the side and waits for the room to be cleaned. To her surprise, everything went smoothly. Maybe it's all because of Esvar who was mentioned. Arjun is most concerned about this. Blue-Eyed realizes that once it's all over, she'll be grateful that no trouble has occurred. The girl looks around and realizes that the two have moved away. She let her guard down a lot. It's good that she noticed in time, running closer. The heroine hides behind the young man's back. So as not to look stupid, the woman says, "Your clothes are of excellent quality." Heimt says that he will soon pay another visit. You can send him a letter for now. Another person is watching the imperial seal. The lady remembers that she saw the signet exactly when Chartreuse dispelled the spell from the letter. It's not easy for Rodin, either, because he's responsible for all the processes. The prince must trust him a lot, since it turns out this way. The man strongly reminds me of someone. The Duke himself should also receive a letter. He is most likely expecting it from his daughter. Suddenly, the hero breaks into a smile because this topic always evokes the warmest emotions in him. Then, everything seems to be in a fog. Roan understands that he will listen. The message will be sent by the one who looked after Rosenstein since childhood, which means the letter must be about the girl. The man continues to talk, while everyone around experiences awkward feelings. Father looks happy, but I want him to shut up as soon as possible. It will be better that way. The letters are clearly not the work of the lady, but of Klast, who is in Beradens. Fischer exaggerates too much when he writes that the girl speaks only of Heimt. He is one of the few people who are aware that she is in the palace, and he agreed to cover on the condition that the lady will regularly write about her well-being. The knights also participated in the cover-up. They arranged fake trips, fake receptions. The maiden had prepared everything in advance. But this was not enough to deceive the father. The gentleman let the lady go alone, only because she wanted to rest, to know that everything was okay with her. It calms the heroine, grew up too quickly as she tried to replace Violetta. Rosenstein had never been good at acting like a child, even when she was a baby, and then when she said she wanted to go away on vacation, he felt relieved. Inside, it becomes uneasy. The master allowed his daughter to deceive him. The respect with which he treats Rowan originates from his immeasurable love. Observing family feelings from an outsider's perspective is a touching experience that makes you cherish them. The preparations for the audience were completed. Everyone went to the chambers wherever you look. There is a lot of light and white color. Just like an angelic palace, the prince looks at Roan. He knows what she is weak for, so he asks her not to look at anything else. The woman does not understand what it was, but the hero pretends that he got the answer he needed. The door opens. The prince sits on the bed, who first of all greets his brother. He is sorry that he made him wait too long, after all. It's good that everything is fine. Lately, Chartis hasn't been visiting the palace at all. He thinks it's not his fault. You're not in a position to meet anyone either. While the two talk, everyone else stands near the entrance. Roan tries to study the boy a little closer, to understand more. The youth's beauty is undeniable, but he is the second son of the Esfer Empire, a man who was able to pacify the conflict over the right of succession, even having that very Chartreuse as a rival. The man who has a wonderful image is the future holder of power over all of Ukraine. He reminds her of someone, but Rosenstein cannot understand. They approached Kartazin the younger and asked about the gift. It was interesting to see why a busy man deigned to come accompanied by vassals, even without an invitation. Lucian and Hostan report back, saying that the master is not too annoying with his orders. They have nothing to complain about. This is just the work and duties of the prince's vassals. The woman is surprised to see Chartis's assistant in such a state. He is tense. The young man does not intend to punish anyone. He simply wants to learn more about the life of his brother and his servants. Because of the blonde's illness, the second prince has to work a lot. Fortunately, the sick man has Menger. He also has to work a lot, which he also agrees to. The young man falls silent, and then notices that there is a completely unfamiliar face in the chambers. He will obviously have to go out and greet her. The lady is just about to step closer when Chartis appears in front of her. In order for the young man to be able to give the gift, the heroine made the greatest contribution. Lucien does not understand why the heroine is being overshadowed. The young man sitting on the bed does not understand what is happening. The time has come to give the gift the man presents Mura's cup, the very one about which there were legends asking Menger to bring the cup. The hero thanks his brother for being able to find the chest, and the assistant approaches the bed. A glass appears in his hands, and he wonders if the ancient legend can change anything if it can overcome the emperor's family curse. The hero takes a sip of wine. The girl watches attentively as everything happens. No one knows how this world will ultimately live, who will rule, who will remain on the throne. The master deprived his younger brother of the opportunity to get rid of remorse. Any ordinary illness would probably have been cured in a second, but not everything is so simple. The only thing that is noticeable is that the situation is much better. The condition has noticeably improved. Soon he will be able to get up and start walking. The gentleman is happy that he will soon be able to take care of his empire as he should. Shartus is walking with Rohan in the garden. He hands her a beautiful flower. The most amazing thing is that the man offered to take the girl home. He did it like that. It was completely natural to provide services to the maids. The attention does not dissipate. It is riveted only on the young man from the moment he left the crown prince's palace. He did not say a word. Kostan said that he would go ahead of the couple. Lucen has disappeared somewhere. He said that he would return immediately after the report, but it turned out that he was delayed. The sorceress is entrusted to His Highness, who for now remains as distant as possible. The knight trusted the beauty, which was strange, because before he didn't really like her, but afterward, he decided that if she were by the master's side, nothing would happen to him, and everything would be fine. The brunette brings her companion out of his thoughts. She can't help but be interested in what the hero is thinking about. He is pondering how to reward Roan and what words to praise him for a job well done. She doesn't understand Mura's ivory didn't have the desired effect, and they did the job together. The prince doesn't agree. It's obvious that all this is thanks to you, Rowan. In a world with such a strong heart as yours, determination gave Esfer a second chance when it seemed that he was dying. The Lord was born for the throne. He himself wants to sit on the throne and rule his country. Shartus does not share the same feelings. The girl listens. Several facts do not fit in her head. She asks if it is true that His Highness does not want to rule. Of course, it would be a lie to say that there was no initial desire for the power that was inherently available to a member of the imperial family. But if he were asked specifically about Carthagin, the answer would be hesitant. The curse disguised as grace, as well as the imperial family itself, are truly disgusting to the young man. He wants nothing to do with them. The girl understands that the hero must be saved at any cost, because there are two pillars supporting the Golden Empire, and revenge against the Carthagin family will remain the only one. Soon rumors spread everywhere. News could not be hidden from high society. They said the crown prince was no longer bedridden. He was immediately calling an international meeting. The curse of the imperial family was broken. Many were curious to learn about the Blessing Stone. The Magnus clan turned the entire continent upside down in search of it, so it is in the hands of the little Countess Arizes. The girl already had her mother's share saved, so she thought that maybe she could be represented after going through this painstaking long path. The red-headed girl arrives to meet Margus. She usually doesn't like it when she's treated so disrespectfully, but strangely enough, the girl remains temporarily silent. I want to know why Reese looks so bad. Everyone is talking only about the blessing of eternity, which fell into the girl's hands directly. She reveals that the jeweler has disappeared. The brunette's eyes sparkle. She asks a question back, which is more rhetorical. I wonder if Lena herself had a hand in this event. If you think about it, that man disappeared right after he made the special decoration. For the lady, a beautiful thing means nothing for her. It is just a political deal. She could easily share this unfortunate stone with the whole world. His Highness would also like this, but the crown prince is completely exhausted, and the heart already has an old owner. I wonder where Theodore was able to find a jeweler. It's better to tell the whole truth. Lucien shows Chartreuse the location on the map. The man was probably acting on behalf of his mother. At first, the worker refused to make the decoration, but Theodore was persistent, offering a huge sum of money. It's quite logical, considering that before the instigator, the jeweler was just an object that had ceased to be useful. He needs to get rid of everyone who presents evidence. The body needs to be found as quickly as possible. Most likely, the gentleman was able to understand the three truths. The plan to poison him with the golden cup failed 3 days past, and the poison had no effect. The prince remained alive. The catalyst, namely, the stone of eternal blessing, ended up in the hands of Prince Shartus. Although it did not last long, but it was worth it. Everyone around knows that the thing was given to none other than Lady Mold. The third truth is what happened a little later. The eternal blessing was also spotted on the chest of the little Countess Eris Margus. It turns out that the aristocrats finally managed to find the jeweler they had been hunting for a long time. The ringleaders realize that Shartus is about to pick up their trail, and they won't be able to hide anywhere. Therefore, the conspirator will try to get rid of the jeweler. They need to move out at night, so they don't have time to cover their tracks. Kostan watches from a hiding place, but no traces of people's movements have been noticed. The man may have gone on the run. It was reported that 2 days ago his wife and child left, and no one has appeared since then. There is an idea that the jeweler has settled inside, deciding not to wait. The young man breaks down the door. There is no one inside. Strangely, it seems that they are taking a step back. You need to carefully look around the outside again. The blue-eyed girl switches her attention to details, and a broken bottle of wine lying on the floor catches her eye. Although the room is dark, judging by the fact that the spilled wine has not yet dried, less than 3 hours have passed. Since the attack, the traces are very fresh. It was smart of the clients to set the house on fire. It perfectly destroyed all traces. They probably saw that someone was approaching, so they hurried. Hostan is called closer. The prince notices a scrap on the floor. He picks it up and asks to hand over the seal. It looks like a letter that can be unlocked. Shartus uses magic with ease. And as he expected, there is an enchanted message under the seal of the ruling family. Strangely, the contents of the note have not changed. Roan comes closer. The woman freezes inside. She has a feeling that something is wrong. She saw something strange, so instead of waiting, the girl rushes to the side. His Highness rushes after the lady so as not to leave her alone. Because the maiden did not hear the warning, the brunette follows ahead. She goes up the stairs. A voice is heard in the distance. It is full of despair. Screams an inhuman flow of noise. The brunette opens the door. Something strange appears in front of her. 2 people are being beaten. One of them screams that all this is about Bishutin. This is not the first time that the lady sees death. She is not allowed to run away, but she cannot bear it, covering her ears with her hands. The blue-eyed one turns around and quickly goes back down the corridor. Her eardrums are about to burst. She can no longer listen to all the horror that she has to go through. The girl is grabbed by the prince, who does not let her leave and asks what happened. She does not react, only mumbles about her ears. The man asks in an insistent voice to look at him. He is sure that everything will be fine. Lucina and Hostana ask to look at the room located at the very end of the corridor. It's obviously too late. There's a body lying there. Sir, you still suggest we inspect the premises. Maybe there's a clue left that can't be missed. The jeweler's body is turned over. His throat was cut. His jaw and neck had already begun to gradually ossify. Approximately 2 hours had passed since his death. Some kind of mark remained on his shoulder. Lucan returns from the back room. He gives his verdict. The man was attacked not long ago. Roan asks if anything unusual was found, something that might be worth attention. There was nothing special in the room. However, something on the body caught my attention. It is not so important, but it can serve as a clue. There is a burn scar near her collarbone, as if something had been burned into her skin. The woman jumps up. This is a lucky place on her body. She will be able to find out what is written, all with the help of her spell. Even if it was only for a moment, the lady saw something that looked like a pattern. It was depicted in dark red. Obviously, the image is not very common. Lucan remains silent, and then steps forward, moving the clothes away from her neck, revealing a red pattern. Roan is asked if this is what she noticed when she was in the room. The eyes widen. The beauty screams that this is exactly what she saw. The prince's assistant has to explain everything briefly. On his chest is the seal of the secret state organization of Bishoten. Probably the jeweler was a spy for the ruling family of Bishoten. A chill ran through her skin. It wasn't that the lady didn't think about it, rather, she tried not to think about it. She didn't want to get into trouble. It has been confirmed that the ruling family of another country is behind the assassination attempt on the second prince, which means that everything will go downhill from here. Of course, Cartazan will not remain idle. The 2 countries will start a war. Akron and the entire southern sea will be engulfed in fire. If there was a special mark on the jeweler's collarbone and the right, he was eliminated for becoming useless. The stigma of a secret organization is placed on refugees and poor people of unknown origin. They are trained as spies or assassins. There is another characteristic feature, their motto, for Bishutian. Everything becomes clear, but until the last moment, it still seems wrong. The organizer is indeed from another country, but they foresaw that the prince would not calm down until he got hold of Mora's ivory. Realization dawns they played on Shardus's guilt. Only someone who saw the two together could know about this. The young man says it's time to go back. The hunting season will be postponed. The seasons are gradually changing. It is no longer hot, with the window open, and the night breeze is very cool. Even the weather does not help. The girl cannot get her thoughts out of her head. She didn't have time to ask. She didn't find it tactful to ask questions about why Lucien had a mark on his body, since he lived in Cartazine. Once the conspirator knows he's been stomped on, he'll be even more careful. Roan is asked to be much more careful, so nothing should happen. Shardus's new personal maid has almost no contact with her family. She has no titles. But at the same time, the maiden has set a new fashion trend, which cannot help but arouse the interest of others. She will be more careful, because she may be followed. The prince nods. He asks that, as soon as the night gets even deeper, the girl return to the place of overnight stay, while others prepare the carriage. Luton is standing nearby, and I really want to ask about the origin of his tattoo to find out how he knows about the sign of the secret organization Bishutian. He suggests that they will have to wait quite a long time. It will be good if he takes the girl. The beauty had to smile back and follow him down the corridor. She couldn't ask him the question directly. It seemed she wanted to console him. The human heart is funny because affection was born inside. There is no strength left at all. The heroine gradually falls asleep. And yet, as she thought, it would be a great pity if she could never hear the prince's voice again. The young man prepared everything and returned back to his chambers. He would deal with the rest of the report later. The maid was sleeping on the sofa. It seemed that she had more strength. In one of the drawers, there is a box the gentleman had previously ordered, that a master be found who could compare with the jeweler who made the brooch he asked to make a beautiful necklace. The thing must be so beautiful that there is no other like it in the world. Roan would not like something heavy and luxurious, because that is not the same story at all. The young man cares what they think of him. He is interested in finding out more, but he doesn't want to disturb the sleeping girl anymore. It's too late anyway. Sitting down next to her, Chartreuse carefully places the necklace around her neck. His beloved lady had willfully given it to mold. He wants her not to refuse at least this gift, a sapphire the same color as the lady's eyes. The young man was always considered special, but not in a good way. The chosen son of Cartazin was not simple. Many thought he was greedy and ordered him to take over the country, and not only that. In the family, this is exactly how things work, bypassing all the rules. But it is worth remembering that the ancestor trampled the heart and burned it under the fire for the life of his brother, and everyone whom Shardus loves will also be cursed. Even when the boy is not around, he promises to put his whole soul into it and pray that the clear light from the gem will protect Rosentine. The castle is in a hubbub. People have been restless since early morning. The rumors were true. His Highness, the Crown Prince, really did get up, which no one could have expected. A parliamentary meeting is scheduled to take place, and not everyone knows the officially announced topic. They say it is conducting the postponed celebration of the founding day of the state. According to tradition, the festival was held at the beginning of the year, on the very day of its foundation. The best time to show how healthy Eswer will no longer be. He needs to sort everything out. The young man will show all the small kingdoms and feudal lords of Akron that he is once again able to rule his country. A festival will be held to celebrate the day of the state, of course. The Lord sits on his throne. He addresses those gathered with the First Order. That same day, delegates must be sent to the old allies, in the name of the second son. Simon turns to the Oberchamberlain, who then turns and greets him. It seems the parliamentary meeting has ended. The prince said that he would return after a short walk in the garden with Almot. The man notices the bird. His assistant used to raise birds, and rumors circulated that blackbirds were raised by those who loved hunting. The wings had dark feathers. He had a note hidden in his hand, asking him to change the plan since Shardus knew everything and his brother was back on his feet. Good news spread throughout the village. They say there will be a festival. Many foreign aristocrats will come. A boy is pasting up pictures of the empire. Since early morning, the maid has been bogged down in errands. After all, the first celebration in 4 years is being held, so it's no wonder the whole country is in an uproar. The girl is the prince's companion, but cannot reveal her identity, so she continues to work Chartreuse, knowing about everything jokes, and constantly offers to hide in his room. The young man irritates Rosentine, but she cannot forget what happened at night. At the moment when the hero arrived in the chambers, she woke up but simply did not show it. There is a decoration in the pocket. One must think of it as the prince's expression of his satisfaction. The maiden wandered into the hall with portraits of the emperor's ancestors. Many familiar faces, all of them already ghosts. Although many took on a different appearance, it was entirely inevitable that these people had to wear masks throughout their lives, regardless of whether they were villains or just people. Even when the mask eventually came off, leaving only a faint essence, one picture attracts the most attention: the beginning of Cartazin in front of the girl Beautiful, a great ruler who founded an empire and carved out a single line in history. His ruthless nature led to a ban on the pronunciation of his name, leaving only his bright creations for future generations to see. The girl looks at another painting when suddenly Renan comes out of it. The youth's face is frighteningly expressionless, as if it were a doll's, so she has to smile slightly. Sometimes this happens if you live as a ghost. For a long time, your emotions, mind, and memories. Everything gradually becomes blurry. It is unavoidable. The young man sometimes forgets who he really is. Unfortunately, if this continues, he will lose all his memories completely, and then there will only be oblivion. The hero risks becoming an evil spirit, losing himself, forgetting even his own name. The ghost, as a rule, begins to curse his own name, not understanding what to do next. Rosentine asks whether it is true that everyone sooner or later becomes an evil spirit, and whether this happens only to the dissatisfied. Everyone without exception will eventually be consigned to oblivion. It's sad at heart, even Gertrude or the Marquise, who were always kind, will lose themselves someday. Their turn will come. There will no longer be the same relationship. Of course, the lady guessed about this, which is why she tried not to develop feelings for them. They would simply disappear, and Roan would be left completely alone with her life and her plans. The friend distracts the lady while she is there. Everything will be fine with them. The heroine will continue to call their names, thereby returning them to reality. They themselves won't even remember their own names, but thanks to the girl, they will understand that they were once people. Ranon wants to report important news to the palace. The celebrations are set to be much more solemn, as can be seen from the fact that delegates have been sent to the large and small kingdoms of Akron, as well as to the southern sea countries. The festival will be attended by princes and the ruling Bishutin family. There is a possibility that someone from the palace was connected to the hired assassin, which means that suspects will be attending. Roan will have a chance to learn more, because she has minions throughout the palace, ready to become her eyes and ears. She no longer feels helpless. The girl will be able to cope with difficulties. In the capital of Bishutean, there is the Calisaris Palace. Someone reported that a delegate from the Carthaginian Empire came. It seems that Eswer has decided to play big. The second Prince Fernando Khan, Saryada Baraten, believes that the man is extremely proud. However, a bird that flies too high is the easiest to hunt. The young man turns to his brother, but he doesn't listen to him at all, believing that he is not responsible for using his brains, and therefore there is nothing to worry about. You just need to go and see the empire on the day of the celebration of the founding of the state. That's all that's required. It's hard to leave with a light heart, leaving everything behind. Karnan Bareten is relaxing on the sofa, surrounded by his pets. Their first eldest brother said he wouldn't go. It's obvious since he'll soon be given the title of Crown Prince. He becomes the first in line for succession, most likely reaping the fruits of his ingratiation with His Majesty. His efforts are commendable, but he does not have much time left to sit on the throne. Karnan asks if a way has been found to pull Balthazar from his position. When everyone sees the feat of the second prince, the title will undoubtedly pass directly into his hands, and then he will destroy Carthagin. The brother promises that he will follow the master. This is exactly how he should behave. Only the feat will be accomplished, and the tradition of the kingdom, that the child of a concubine cannot be recognized, will officially change. It turns out that the young man will have absolutely everything he could dream of, if not for the position he could not occupy. Ships from other countries are heading to Cartagena the very day has arrived. The hall is buzzing because aristocrats from all around have gathered. Lucien and Hostan stand aside until Roan approaches them. She still decided to take good care of her clothes, so she asks what they think about the dress. The virgin must be a flower, so that if she hid in a flower field, feudal lords from all over Akron would gather, so simple clothing, on the contrary, would only attract even more attention. The lady is wondering where Chartis is. He is obviously busy with his tasks, standing next to his brother. He looks up, and lo and behold, the two meet each other's eyes, raising her hand. The heroine waves, and only then realizes that she screwed up, because this is a Korean greetings. It seems that the word virgin is constantly making mistakes. This cannot help but irritate and make one feel awkward. Strangely enough, the prince only smirks. Inside, there is a feeling as if her throat is starting to burn. The lady herself does not understand why she was the first to look away. Clearing her throat, she tries to behave as she usually does. Esfar orders the doors to be opened, and the honored guests, the precious allies, who have traveled such a long way and have reached their destinations, to be welcomed. Roan cringes. The second prince of Bishutian is the first to speak. It feels like the time spent maintaining ties with the empire has not been in vain. Both of those who arrived are suspects. They are the ones who needed to perform the feat of killing Prince Cartazan. Only the officially appointed crown prince cannot be the criminal. The succession is in question for only two. And besides, they still have to discover an enemy from outside who has joined their side. A stranger who wants to help, completely ruining everything. Luton says that it is time to retreat. They are going to leave together, but then a stranger of enormous height appears in front. Apparently, this is His Highness's guard, who has arrived from another country. The man is asked to step aside, but then what is happening attracts the attention of the princes. Fernando told Argos that he had already noticed that there were no cows to check, which meant there was no point in coming. The gentleman turns his gaze to Lucien, and it immediately becomes clear to him that these are the eyes of a witch. Her head has not flown off her shoulders, even in the capital of Cartagena. Obviously, their assistant has found something interesting. The girl decides to take matters into her own hands, stepping forward and apologizing as Prince Chartis' servants, who should have immediately shown their respect. But unfortunately, they were unable to quickly comprehend what was happening. Since they had to reveal their status, what they would end up taking on would be the challenge they would throw down to the second prince and the imperial family of Cartazens. The young man smiles, but this smile makes one feel uneasy. In that case, it's good that the gentleman left very smart assistants near him. Carnan is offered to go through. The girl learned that, thanks to their intuition, they guessed that in front of them was the same maid from the rumors, and she attracted their attention. The time has come for the main event. The leader greets all the onlookers, feudal lords and riders from different countries, who have gathered for the moment. 2 horses, with riders, come forward. It is time to issue a challenge. The first contestants to be given the honor of challenging the returning nation's founding celebration will be none other than Mold and Countess Alicia Margus. For some time, they will be making noise, both day and night. The beginning of a full-fledged celebration of the founding of the state is a holiday opened under the leadership of Crown Prince Isuaro. In contrast to the established traditions of the celebration, which was usually held in winter, the peculiarity of the mild and warm beginning of summer was used, as well as the culture of games buried in the depths of the annals of Cartagena. The prince is told that starting tomorrow, he will be able to see the famous spear competitions in the Battle of Horsemen. Eswar will be glad if they like everything very exciting, no doubt about it. The deserts of the land of Cartagena are not suitable for raising fast horses, and watching the animals roam around with such healthy bodies makes one's insides freeze. The man can't contain his admiration. He gently taps his finger. He directs magic at the horse. The green light slightly covers the body. The servant standing nearby tries to calm the animal down. For him, the competition is over, and he can return to the stable. It's surprising that he's no longer as calm as he was before. Roan finishes her work. It's good that she doesn't have to do anything anymore. It's time for His Highness to return. A man is heading towards the lady. The heroine almost immediately understands who is in front of her. Lady Muld's escort. He wants to talk a little. The lady conveyed that she wants to personally express her gratitude for what happened in the Margus séance. It is not clear what gratitude is due, for she has done nothing deserving of gratitude, except that as a servant she passed on Chartreus's eternal blessing. It seems she will guess that she was used. The woman doesn't know what the real goal was, but Mold hopes that it turned out as desired. She smiles, which means she's joking. She heard that the brunette was also not averse to the darkness of the maid's dirty work. The mistress's assistant asked what the reason was if his question did not seem rude. It was time for everyone to talk about it. The girl came on the prince's recommendation as a personal maid who eats and sleeps with the maids, but at the same time whose origins are unknown. Rumors abound in noble society that a place in the imperial palace would be a chance for any aristocrat to find a good position, and there is a fierce competition among them. Besides, no one could take the position of the prince's personal maid for longer than a month, so everyone was furious that someone no one knew about could remain in their position for so long. Ms. Mold values this ability highly, and it seems she likes it. So Roan wants to offer something, for example, cooperation with the county. This will also be beneficial to her. Almost everyone in high society hates Rosentine. It is unknown whether the prince will keep the girl by his side, turning away from all of them, because the lady will not forget the merits of the servant if she gives her consent. The woman apologizes for interrupting, but she wants to know what kind of service is being requested. Help Mold become Empress Cartazan. It becomes clear why Roan was chosen from the trio close to Chartis, but it is not clear whether Aralin wants the position of Empress more than the position she is entitled to as the head of the Count's family. Rather, it may be the end that the woman desires. The heroine says that she is obliged to refuse the offer. This may seem rude, but it seems the assistant is mistaken in his reasoning. He should have first studied the lady a little better, and then said anything. Most likely, the lady does not need outside help, and not only Roan's help, but also someone else's too. The mold that Rosentine knows achieves everything she wants herself. If she didn't act, then she doesn't need it. Sir Knight, you shouldn't try to persuade her like this, but rather understand her wishes and begin to respect them. The young man is too young, probably not even court's age. Being young is not a sin, and no one can learn without making mistakes. But Roan must pretend he knows nothing. Nothing good will come of it if Mold learns of the reality of what is happening. Blue Eyes promises that she will pretend that she did not hear anything while they were talking. They did not notice that a horse came out of the stable, the very one that the magic was directed at. The horse rushes forward straight towards the girl and the man. It looks like it has gone mad. Something is wrong, but no one knows what exactly. The knight finally notices the animal and screams, causing Roan to turn around the maid, not knowing if the horse is going to attack her. The prince and Hoston are heading forward. They were just about to meet Roan. They see a horse running forward. Rosenstein knows she doesn't have much of a chance. She needs to try to save herself by snatching the polearm from the guard she needs to dodge, but her body doesn't move at all. The woman thinks that everything will end, but then Chartis appears in front of her with the weapon he uses in his hands. Behind you can see Karnan, who, as it turns out, was the one who used the magic that helped defeat the horse. Apparently, everything that falls into your hands becomes a weapon. The girl thought about where she had seen the young man. He was considered the very one, the blessing of gold. If he had been even a little slower, everyone would have seen how a hole had been made in two. The hero turns to Rowan, noticing that they met again. He says that she almost died. It's strange that she does it so calmly, and even with a smile on her face. The woman wants to answer something, but she is interrupted. Chartis comes up and grabs her in his arms. It's better not to get up. The beauty is surprised too many people are looking at them. The blonde asks if the maid is hurt. Earlier, she was ordered to always look around, because if the Bishutins come, it could become very dangerous. Besides everything, the maiden was obliged to come back to the master as soon as she finished all her business. Everything that the hero felt was clearly visible. The hero knows very well that the girl needs help, but she does not ask. It seems this is because she is used to pain in her past life. She constantly fell. Please let me go. Instead of following her wishes, The man presses on her leg, causing her to scream. Roan has very bad habits, but she just doesn't even understand where they came from. The woman is about to be taken away. She wants to resist noticing that she was talking, but it will be awkward to tell Shartus directly about the topic, which included the Empress's place. The third prince is asked to forgive him for what he had to see, and the knight is asked to forgive him for the side he showed. He is very ashamed to remember how he made a mistake. The young man nods, but thinks it would be better to apologize not to him, but to the lady he is holding in his arms, since it was she who almost died, as a result of being attacked by a mad horse. It was time to leave. Karnan watched carefully, the puzzle coming together in his head. The woman was considered special after all, since they stood up for her directly. In the second prince's tent, the girl is seated, and the knight is asked to bring the cup. They tried to show it to everyone. It felt as if the young man was doing it on purpose, but you can't ask about it. The hero presses on the lady's leg, forcing her to close her eyes, which causes her to let out another small cry as the pain spreads. The strange sensations are returning again, as if they cannot be gotten rid of it. Seemed like there was only a scratch on the leg, but obviously the problem lies a little deeper. The hero is about to examine his knee, but before that, he looks intently into the eyes, as if he wants something. It would be better if he lifts the hem of his dress. The lady understands the situation, in which if any servant or aristocrat saw them from the outside, he would be thinking about something of his own. The man knows that they have guessed what happened. The horse was directed by someone from Bishaten. They do not suppress the sorcerers. They have changed the plan. Those sent from the country decided to deal with the servant and the poisoned alcohol and the failed murder. With the help of Ivory, they were caught by the tail, even thanks to the catalyst. The one who was interfering with all the plans was the mysterious girl. Obviously, they decided that it would be easier to try to get rid of her. Although the lady had expected events to unfold this way, she still didn't think they would attack like this openly, right at the festival. A stupid move that could be contested. They decided that there was no need to give time, because they were not going to get rid of someone from the imperial family, but a simple servant for the sake of a trick. The young man was no longer going to leave Roan as a simple maid. This means that incredibly distorted rumors will begin to circulate. The gentleman will do everything to ensure that everyone is aware of how the lady entered the tent and will not shut the mouths of the gossips. The brunette suspected that the gentleman was going to make everyone notice, but she didn't believe it until the very end. It seemed as if everything had become much more serious. The prince assures that for now there is no better solution. The girl should stay by his side. It will not take more than a certain period of time, but will provide sufficient security. The ghosts are trying to eavesdrop on those who arrived from Bishateon. They can't get close, as if from behind a barrier, a man with dark hair seems to be the cause of everything that happened. The second prince assumed that everything would not be resolved so quickly, but the third did not understand why they were wasting so much effort on the servant. They needed to find confirmation that she had planned everything. The Oberkammerger is very worried about the girl. There is no need to dance to his tune. They are also worried about the lady, so you should be extremely careful. Arias will be brought into the matter, but everything must be done as quietly as possible to avoid confusion in the empire. If only to correct the mistake that led to the catalyst being handed over to them, and to regain their trust, the young man must earn his stripes. The ghosts returned to the girl to tell her everything they had learned. The lady was surprised that they looked overly happy. It was not like them. Fernando wanted to kill the heroine, so he sent a hired killer after her. As Chartreuse says, they will try to get rid of the lady in the Bishutian language. Arias is a person who is everywhere among the raised mercenaries. They are considered the most loyal. They are said to be able to use witchcraft and change their appearance. There is one sign by which they can be recognized, namely round accessories, with a snake biting its own tail. Blue Eyes remembers the man who escaped after killing Jerd. Now there will be a chance to catch him, because after interrogation, it will be possible to increase the amount of useful information. Since a mercenary was assigned to the lady, the situation certainly wouldn't be resolved by a simple attempt to escape. Perhaps if she went ahead, she would be able to obtain information. She needed to involve Arias. Gertrude is surprised the girl is out of her mind if she decides to put her life on the line. She asks not to worry so much. It should be obvious that Chartreuse will help. Inside the lady, a voice again asks her to keep everything a secret from the prince, because when he learns that the maid is in danger, he will immediately run away without paying attention to anything in his path. He must be stopped and protected from death. Rosenstein states that he will catch the mercenary himself, even if he is the best of the best. If he plans properly, he will be able to find himself in an advantageous position. First, the heroine will choose the time and place, lure him there, and she will ask several knights for an ambush and rescue. Shardus is not the only one who can protect her from death. The lady heads to the head of state's bodyguard barracks, but they won't let her in. The beauty asks her to go through, as the task won't take long. The woman needs to find someone who can choose a man who has the ability to select a capable knight. She turns to the one who supposedly leads the personal guard of the second prince. Initially, the heroine needs a guard knight with excellent abilities, whom she can trust. This should be a person who can stay nearby for about 2 hours. Rowan does not need someone from the escort. During an important event for the country, the day of the celebration of the founding of the state, the lady not only frequently showed her face to everyone around, but also stood next to Chartreuse, needing to peel it off. The only question is whether Arius will have the moment to attack the beauty. She just wants to get her personal life back and have more free time. The lady came alone for precisely this reason, because only the head of the guard can select a capable knight whom His Highness can consider sufficient for his peace of mind. Everyone knows that the guard led by Gaston are the best warriors in the Empire. If one of them is assigned as a bodyguard, it will be possible to unstick the prince and prepare for the mercenaries' attack. The gentleman says that he has a suitable person. Roan asks to send him as soon as possible, doing this as soon as all preparations are completed. The girl has business. She runs away without explaining the reason for the urgency. A few days later, Gaston says that he has assigned the lady a guard. Calic seemed like a suitable option. The prince agrees with this candidacy, but he has a bad feeling about it. Gaston knows something about something, because the day before he saw the man getting properly equipped, saying that the lady entrusted him with an important task and asked him to take a more powerful weapon. Shardus gets up from his place. It would be better to send Calic to the barracks, and at night he will go to the girl himself to help her with protection. When there was a knock on the door, the witch said that she was changing clothes. The knight arrived earlier than she expected. Opening the door, the lady froze in front of her, stood the one whom she did not expect to see. The brunette slams the front door and shouts that the gentleman has come to the wrong place. He asks to open it, because otherwise he will do it by force. The choice is up to the mistress. With no options left, the two sit in silence for the next 5 minutes, until the prince asks what the maid is hiding. The master assassin will act late at night in order to lure him at the right time. The maid has been playing the busy lady for several days in a row. To make the plan perfect, the heroine only had to convince the knight Calic. Now she can't change anything. She just has to figure out how to adapt to the existing sources. The two glance at each other. The prince is not going to leave because he wants to find out what kind of tricks they are playing behind his back. It would probably be right to tell about my plans and begin preparing for an attack again. That same voice saying that, if the prince is in danger, you need to abandon the body and run. The blonde takes Argan by the hand. She is deep in thought about something, but still hasn't told him what she is going to do. As soon as the lady opens her mouth and starts talking, she hears some sounds. The man asks Roan what is happening. She reacts immediately. Covering her mouth with her hand, the girl forces the young man to fall onto the bed. It's too late for explanations. All that remains is to hope that the premonition will be the same as always. A hired killer is approaching them. The master won't have time to draw his sword, but the girl has something prepared. This time, she really was going to tell everything, so she asks not to be too angry. The hero manages to parry Arius's blow in time, and surprisingly, even from his strength, the stand didn't collapse. He'll have to use other techniques. The young man hadn't seen anything like this in a long time. He had seen many people run away with their tails between their legs, but he rarely met his equal. The duel would not be graceful, so there was no point in introducing himself. The mercenary understands that in a face-to-face fight, his chances of success are almost zero. It is possible that the prince came only to protect the woman sitting behind him. Arius quickly figures it out. He managed to find out what the gentleman's weakness is. The battle begins after a while. It becomes clear to the hero that his blows are being parried, not received. The mercenary tries to fight bravely, but he really has little chance against a force that is so great, something else is needed. So he strives for the girl, but they do not let him. He doesn't think the chances of failure are zero, so he will continue to fight, making his way straight to the maid. The woman is sitting on the floor, slowly coming to her senses. This is not the time to be stunned. She needs to do something. She also did not intend to get involved in an adventure without any ideas for resistance. The lady had previously been given the artifact she had requested, the kind used during the fireworks display, and she was glad that her difficult request had been fulfilled. Initially, the thing is pulled onto an arrow and launched forward, but if you rub the pattern on top, it is activated, albeit for a few seconds, and it will be possible to worsen the enemy's vision. A flash will appear before the eyes, and only a few dozen seconds will pass before vision is restored. However, if this is such a decisive situation, even these seconds will give the prince an advantage. Rushing forward, the lady shouts that His Highness needs to close his eyes. He immediately obeys, and force is used on the man, allowing him to be sealed. Gaston and some of the squad arrive in the room just in time. A rag is needed to gag someone. Two are asked to arrest a person, and the chief chamberlain is asked to watch the servants' mouths. There is an unpleasant feeling inside the girl. Her eyes turn green again. She consciously tries not to forget this, so she remembers exactly what happened recently. She felt like they were trying to brainwash and manipulate her. All of this was done by a voice of unknown origin. The lady does not know whether to tell the gentleman, but does not know how she will be perceived. The prince doesn't look at the maid. His voice lowers. If it were Kalak who had come to her, the girl would certainly have died. The prince would personally take the attacker away, and it would be better for Gaston to stay by the heroine's side. Morgana and Bailey are asked to follow the moon of the empire. The maiden clutches the hem of her dress. With her hands, the door slams. The man didn't even turn around again. The same feelings as before from a past life surfaced. The gentleman wanted to know if Roan was okay, and she sharply said that everything was fine. Fragments of life in Korea appear periodically. This time, a lady is sitting in a doctor's office. There is a wound on her leg. The doctor asks if it probably even hurts for her to walk. The girl thought that everything would pass after a while, that she was fine, and just asked to put on a patch. But they refused her, as there was a risk of bacteria appearing. The doctor wants to disinfect the wound and says it will hurt, but surprisingly, Lizzie doesn't react at all. After the procedure, they want to call Yoon's guardians to take him home. Jumping up, the schoolgirl asks not to do this. She is fine, she is not in pain, so she will definitely be able to get to her house. Sol is sitting in class, so lost in thought that she doesn't notice how one of her classmates comes up to her and distracts her from her thoughts in a rather rude manner. The girl wants to know if her friend really sees ghosts, how she told her all about it. The brunette looks away. Who told you about this? It is assumed that the heroine was kicked out of the house, for the same reason she asks not to worry, because she does not see them anymore, so everything is fine. It's raining outside. The woman is near the crosswalk. In that conversation, she lied. She also sees ghosts probably since she was about 5 years old. It all started when the little girl complained to her father that her grandparents were following her. There were tears in the child's eyes, all because of the fear that was taking over her insides. Two people approach her ears and continue to say strange things. Then she was not really believed later. It only began to cause problems. At school, Kim's teachers asked her to pretend nothing was happening so as not to damage the school's image. The little girl was constantly put under control. Many people disliked her. Even as a small child, she should know how to hide it and monitor the reactions of others. The girl seemed not to think at all about the wounded parents' hearts. No one was happy about a stupid child, but everyone thought that Yoon was to blame. One day, Lee Ji-yeon approaches Sol and offers to go watch a movie together. The schoolgirl refuses because she has a part-time job. She remains silent and then asks if they are afraid of hers. Surely the girl had already heard that her friend saw ghosts, but the heroine's reaction was too violent. She immediately decided that some of the actions were happening because of the deceased. The brunette asked him to leave her alone. Most likely the new acquaintance did this only because she didn't know that if she hung out with Sol, people would start avoiding her too. Ji hugs the girl. Everything is fine with her, because initially she never had friends. Even villains should have at least one comrade. Then she asked to go watch a movie, skipping her part-time job for money. Time passes, and surprisingly, the friends lose contact. The woman didn't understand why she couldn't get through. In messages, the woman confessed that something strange had been happening to her lately. A voice appeared inside, assuring that it was all because of Yoon. All the stuck ghosts had gone to her friend. All the blame was on her. She should have stayed alone. In the heart of every person, there is a small room when it hurts. The whole body seems to collapse when the soul is tormented. You want to protect yourself, so you have to hide in the room. Yoon wished that in her next life she would become a brave person. She didn't want anyone to become unhappy because of her. She didn't want to lose pain and sadness. The new world was granted. The lady was still burning with the desire to protect all those who were dear to her. She wanted to be like Venus, just as bright. Almost the whole night has passed. The captain of the squad wishes to stay and continue to guard the maid, while the prince is taken care of. The knight brought him the blanket that was asked for earlier. Roan was able to calm down a little, so she can breathe a sigh of relief. Gaston is thanked for his help and asked for forgiveness. It turns out that the girl lied even to him. The man wants to ask a strange question. He is interested in why the lady is trying to protect His Majesty from death. To such an extent, even though it is written in the contract, there are always limits. At first, the hero thought that this could be a manifestation of character, because sometimes the girl is incredibly brave and even seems reckless. But there is something that cannot be explained even by traits. Gaston asks, not to repeat that the lady is fine. She does not look like everything is fine with her. It is worth confessing and asking for help. She and His Highness are very similar. Rosenstein remembers a conversation she had when she was 15. Argan asking if it was hard for her to learn how to become the head of a family at her age. It seems that the main palace has let something slip. Rose seems too serious to the gentleman. No matter what you ask her, she always assures that everything is in perfect order. The father doesn't know that his daughter was born with all the memories from her past life, and this is what shaped her, making her a special person. The lady knows that they are worried about her. That is why they ask such questions. No one knows that she is having a hard time feeling sad, lonely, and most importantly, incredibly scared. Blue-eyed once again puts aside her feelings, smiling. She assured the Duke that she is fine. The next chapter cannot be emotional. Although it seems that the father is deliberately behaving differently, shouting at his subjects. This is the problem. The girl grew up too early, her childhood was taken away. The sooner a child grows up, the sooner he loses the support he could rely on. And accordingly, the adults who were supposed to become him were sometimes unable to fully fulfill their responsibility. The only thing the gentleman would like to show the girl is that he and court will always be there, and that they will accept Rosenstein for who she is no matter how she behaves. Even if the Duchess is not perfect, there are always people around her whom she can trust and rely on. Such a small faith makes people stronger. Sitting next to the knight, the lady admits that she also considers her behavior strange. Even her decision to come to the castle was not voluntary. What happened to the hitman is also not something a maiden would have chosen, if you think about it. Something similar has happened several times in the past. When the heroine is about to think about why she did this, her head suddenly starts to hurt, and inside she feels feelings that come from somewhere outside, lying down, as if she is possessed by something. Constant doubts make her wonder what is happening, the actions that someone is pushing her to take. Rowan doesn't know if she is really imagining it all. Gaston asks again to clarify one last time. The hero also thinks that the maiden looks like a person who has forgotten the original purpose for which she arrived at the Emperor's castle. Initially, she said that she wanted to get a guarantee of her family's safety. It seems that she values it, so it seemed that after the case, the girl would return. But at some point, it began to seem as if the lady had nowhere to return to. It seemed that if only the girl could protect the second prince, she would be ready to even throw away her life. Even at night, the lady did the same. The heroine has enough selflessness, and she surprised even the knight, who gave an oath of allegiance to His Highness. The maid doesn't even have any reason to rush to help, sacrificing herself. Gaston delivers the maid to the gate. She says that she is already fine, so she will go herself before leaving. The man is thanked again for listening. They were talking about how Arjun was possessed by someone or something, so she was very worried that she would be misunderstood. He shrugs. I couldn't even help you much. It's hard to imagine something like this, so the hero can't help but speak without thinking, but he can still give some advice. Having someone to listen to made Rosenstein feel a little better, even if only a little, and the knight could be a conversationalist for as long as needed. The lady understands that as soon as she meets Shardus, she needs to apologize, but it is not clear what she needs to say. She also does not know the reason for her actions. She knows that she was called and controlled to protect the prince. One thing is not clear why Argan was chosen. Of course, she is resourceful, but there may be many other people capable of protecting the master. The woman cannot understand if there is another reason why she was chosen again. She feels an unfamiliar voice whispering in her ear. So did you guess? Rosenstein could continue to live, closing his eyes, covering his ears, and holding his breath, and the world would somehow continue to exist. But that would be too cowardly. A person will leave the imperial family and die what is called a strange voice. Perhaps it is time to tell the reason why the strangeness is happening to her. The goddess of the Cartesian Empire. Hwangum brought the girl to the castle. The beauty turns around and sees a spirit in front of her. This reminds her of the past when there were many spirits in front of her. Roan covers her mouth with her hands, tears streaming from her eyes, and for some reason, she hears the prince's voice in her head, promising that she's okay. The woman stands in place as if glued, and then breaks away and runs. She wants to hide. The goddess is going to tell the story of the Empire of Cartesian a long time ago, very long before the events there lived. A young man, it seemed that his wisdom was endless. There was nothing that his blade could not cut. Many treated him like the sun, and followed him time past. The hero was chosen by his allies, and now he became king. The time had come to rule the country. Such a man could be an excellent ruler. He is dedicated to a precious sword of incredible durability. It is truly beautiful. It would be a great pity to let it fall asleep in its sheath. It must be used in the defense of the state. The young man was told that his words were true. The castle and the country were too small to fill his heart. The crow in which the spirit resided suggested that he become the king of not just one country, but the emperor of an entire continent. In order to take over all the countries, more wars and conquests would be needed. He had no legal obligation to start a war, so he did not understand what he could do. Then another bird came and wanted to tell a story. In a very distant place, located in the east, there lives a generation of sorcerers called the descendants of the gods. The emperor was asked to find them. Even though the road would be difficult, it would be worth it if he truly wanted to fulfill his desire. He had to follow the instructions. The young man was greeted by those who lived in the forest. They did not understand why he had come, unless he was going to burn them. He explained that he felt thirsty during his journey. That day, a woman came out to the man, introducing herself as Hwangum. She asked if he needed help. She was chosen as the goddess of the clan. The hero repeated the same thing, explaining that he felt a burning thirst, and thanks to the kindness of those people, the young man stayed with them for a few more days to rest a little and look around. After this, he and the girl fell in love with each other. The man wanted confirmation of love from his beloved, so she swore on the river of the world of the dead that she would fulfill 3 wishes, whatever he wanted. The first wish made by the young man was nothing other than a wedding with Hwangum. And then, with the goddess standing behind him, he began a holy war. Like the sun, he burned absolutely everything around him. On the site of the continent that had been reduced to ashes, the hero erected Cartesian. His second wish was the blessing of the goddess. He asked for a blessing to be bestowed upon the empire. He wanted the entire imperial family to prosper, and for the children who would become rulers to possess power. The woman explained that what was being asked of her was not something simple, which meant that she would have to pay a decent amount to get it. No matter how luxuriously the empire would flourish, the lands and lives of the common people would rot. In order to allow the divine power to be passed on to the child who will become the emperor, his brothers, sisters, and many of his loved ones will have to be sacrificed. The commoners will be miserable, and the children will have to endure a merciless fate. The woman believed that it was not too late to name another wish, but he refused, believing that making some sacrifices was not so bad. Even then, Hwangum needed to understand that her husband blessed his children to die. From the very beginning, he did not feel love for her, he only used her. The girl had no choice, because she had made a promise of wishes. But the young man did not dare to make the last wish, because until all three were fulfilled, the lady would not be able to leave the empire even after death, remaining inside forever. The goddess also did not want to use the innocent child she brought to the castle and used as a sacrifice. She wanted to take revenge on the one who betrayed her and burned her family. Shartus is irritated when he is called none other than the descendant of Huangum. It seems to him that this cannot be true. Entering the chambers, the young man remembers how he sat there with his brother and mother. During the day, the little girls learned the history of their empire. The lesson was interesting, but they didn't understand why only one had to be chosen and why the other couldn't live in peace. The emperor is the only one this is done, so that they do not quarrel over the imperial throne. So one child is chosen, and in order for him to be able to sufficiently manage all aspects of the country, he is made ideal. In politics, appearance also becomes a weapon. Although both children are cute and beautiful, if they receive a blessing, they will have something bigger, more interesting. Esvar assumes that the goddess values his family, and indeed she does, and he wanted to know if everything would be all right, even if he failed to gain her favor. The mother did not answer the question, hoping that the boy would believe that everything would always be fine. It was late, and she suggested that they quickly go to bed. That night, they fell asleep in the woman's arms, as they always did. She cried all night, and Chartreuse had a rather strange dream. The goddess herself came to him. Huangum introduced herself, because before that, no one knew what kind of appearance she had in a generation. There can only be one person to whom favor will be sent. Before the boy's birth, there was no choice. There was only one child in the family, which meant the message would be sent to the first prince. Even the fact that Chartus was born didn't change anything fundamentally. The girl had no other option but to bless the boy's older brother, who looks very much like her husband, the very first Emperor Cartesini. It was known that many people would die, and the whole of Akron would become filled with thick rivers of blood and the smell of rotting corpses. So it was necessary to rejoice at the birth of a boy, at least while there was time. The mother could not help but cry, realizing that she should not have given birth to a second child, because it is known that the brothers and sisters of those who were given favor will be subject to sacrifice. The goddess is going to take the gift from Esvar and pass it on. That child will become emperor and prevent history from repeating itself. This is the only revenge that can be taken. Ending the age of the sun, the young man will follow Venus and become the one who opens a new era. The guy was always smart. What is called favor is clearly not given for free. It is obvious that this is true. A sacrifice must be made. Chartus' brother and everything he loves will be sacrificed to the lady following the laws of nature. There is no way to change anything. The hero was shown Argonace. If a man truly cares about a girl, he should forget about her. Otherwise, she will also be taken as a sacrifice. Then he cried and begged not to kill the lady, promising that he would completely forget about her existence. He would never love her if only everything would stop. The woman has learned the entire history of the empire. She is rushing forward to meet His Highness. She needs to try to change the course of events. Knocking on the door of the room, the lady waits for an answer, but nothing happens. Silence hangs. It seems that no one is in the room. She decides that if this is the case, it is better to leave, given the poor condition that makes herself feel lousy. They were about to leave when the lady saw the door opening. She apologized for coming early in the morning and offered to come back later, but then the prince grabbed her and pulled her inside. He is interested to know the reason why the girl brings herself to such a degree. She runs away and gives up everything, even her life, everything for the sake of salvation. This can be considered something stupid, nothing more. When a woman says she doesn't know, a man completely loses control of himself. He should say that she really doesn't know anything, but perhaps there were some signs that made her behave differently. Having tried to distance herself, the lady repeats that she did not want to behave incorrectly. She knows that she did badly. She did not want anyone to be angry with her. She was saved many times, pulled out of trouble. The girl recognized such a refined anxiety, which is rarely encountered too late. She would have liked to understand what was happening, but a little earlier. The girl relied so much on the man without even noticing it, that she was pierced by an extraordinary pain. She hated what was happening, what could not be explained by any words. Because of the value and desire to protect her dear family, the Virgo will not be able to say anything but quite the opposite. she will be deprived of the gift of speech. The young man begins to remember the past, and everything comes together into one picture. Stretching out his arms, he hugs the girl. There is fear inside when the protective mask breaks and the mask of a man disappears. Everything will crumble. The young man asks for forgiveness. I thought only about myself. Please forgive me. It seemed that the cold light of the moon was mistaken for a bright glow. But now the hero has fully revealed his tenderness. Such as it is, the woman does not know whether she will be able not to show greed. Perhaps the girl will not be able to turn away from the other world and leave without any regrets, leaving behind what she was able to gain. Inside every heart, there is a door to a room that hides true feelings. Rosenstein has never admitted to anyone what she really feels. A woman should say that she is scared and ask for help so as not to be left completely alone with almost nothing. It was the same with everyone. Everyone suffered because of Arjun, both mom and dad, and Ji-yeon. They couldn't protect themselves, although they needed it, and in the end, they were left with a broken heart. The young man is different. He considers himself strong. He is a man who is not afraid to fall and does not avoid pain. But Rosenstein simply forgot how to say that she is in pain. From the very first meeting, the man remembered his girlfriend and held only to the words that were said to her. He was going to repay the debt so that the girl would not suffer. It was not her fault. The young man extends his hand and asks the girl to walk with him from beyond the plain to the east. A soft and gentle breeze blows fanning his face. Even knowing that winter will come someday, the girl understands that she will be warm. She will enjoy what she is given while she has the opportunity. In the morning, Roan opens her eyes and realizes that she doesn't recognize the pattern on the ceiling. A moment later, she remembers how she kissed the prince she caused trouble. The girl confessed to some kind of dream. However, she does not remember anything at all. She grabs her head. Fortunately, the magic wig does not come off. The man's scent couldn't help but attract her. It was obvious that she was in Shardis's bed. She was just wondering where the owner of the room had gone. The young man enters the room. He does not look surprised when he sees that the lady is already awake. He brought a small snack which is on a tray, but he is refused. I'm not particularly hungry. A glass is passed into her hands. Inside is a honey drink that her mother often gave to her daughter when she was little, and she's about to take a sip. There's still some things to clarify. The beauty turns to the gentleman, and it turns out she doesn't quite remember the events that happened that night. So it's necessary to reconstruct the chain of events. I would like to know if she and the prince were in the same bed, judging by the fact that he came without a shirt, and she was sitting in his room. This would be the most logical explanation for the situation. Lowering his voice, the blonde asks again if the heroine really doesn't remember anything. He takes off his cape and moves forward, throwing her onto the bed. The young man does nothing, just smiles. The fusion did not occur. The lady fell asleep at night. Time passes. The gentleman begins his preparations for the new day. The girl is still sitting on the bed, not quite understanding whether she really can be there, and whether there really won't be any problems with it. The servants are shown out. They need to discuss something, and only in private. That would be the right thing to do. The hero wants to know what the beauty saw. She was terribly frightened. Fragments of a conversation pop into my head. A little boy who accepted the goddess built a temple on the site of a continent burned to the ground. He founded the Empire of Cartazan. The lady managed to learn a story that she will never forget. The girl saw a ghost. His gaze and hair color were like deep and thick water after a flood or a dark swamp. If you think about it, she remembers that Lucan has the same hair color. It's possible that the man knows something about that very lady who was trampled and disappeared. In the other side of ancient history, everything was different. About Kanyim, it is known. This is an ancient hallucination that can be seen after a long life in the castle. His Highness thinks about it. He asks to forget about what was said, because the girl does not have many days left before she leaves the palace. After leaving, the spirit will no longer appear to torment. The great son of the empire is looking at the painting when Rodin approaches him. When the man stands, it seems as if the same majestic emperor of the country has come to life again. Because he has to take care of all the affairs in place of his father, the young man feels as if he has ascended the throne again, and the servant knows that this will soon be the case, and that the era of greatness achieved by the first ruler will return. The assistant will put his family name on the line and will help until the very end, until he manages to take the coveted place. The blonde knows about the incredible sincerity, but asks not to talk about it. The empire belongs to Chartreuse. It would be wonderful if I could catch the boy fulfilling his wish. The advisor would like to say something. The man has something like his own opinion about what is happening. It is not a fact that everything will be right, but he wants to show his interest. His Highness intends to involve commoners in the governance of the country. This cannot but surprise. This has never happened before. He often said, even during his training, that he wanted to share the government with those below him. The hero wanted nothing more than to share the sacred power bestowed by heaven upon the royal family. The youth had truly always been a special child. The assistant tries to explain his position. The prosperity and decline of the country are in the hands of the ruler and those in power. This can help to achieve the goal, but also lead everyone to decline. The desire itself is strange. There is no need to share power with commoners who have not even been taught anything. It is simply ridiculous to understand that they so strongly want to make them part of the conversation. They are just adults who are being looked after. It is believed that with such methods of governance, the young man will only shake up the perfectly constructed structure of the country. Mano says everything correctly. However, there is one but. Esfar does not believe that if a ruling family, which has been on the throne for over 1,000 years, shares a little power with the inhabitants, it can be considered a weakness that is perceived destructively. Anxiety is like negative emotions, all because the family has been building the foundation for a long time, raising the country from its knees. Words are sharper than a blade. You have to be careful not to be left without a language. Blue Eyes looks around. She doesn't quite understand what she should do, because the downpour ruined everything, in any case. Bishutin also figured out everything, so there is no longer any point in trying to hide. The woman is not going to try to dress up as she did before. She will just walk as she is. Even if it is the day of the Empire celebration, there is no need to imitate the aristocrats. Roan is grabbed by the arms by two maids, and an unfamiliar lady appears before her. By order of the second prince, the girl will be taken to the castle, but for what purpose is a secret. The heroine had no choice but to calmly agree to the preparation. First they wash her hair. She has to relax. Argan is dressed in such a way that she doesn't recognize herself. The woman likes everything, but the dress looks too luxurious, as if for a simple maid. It seems that the master did everything according to his own taste. Louise enters the room to check. She is glad that the preparations were finished. Besides everything, the heroine is carefully asked if she feels okay. Everything is fine with her, and even a gentleman came to see her to make sure of everything. One of the maids nods in surprise. Apparently, His Majesty was also attacked. They say he looked like a man from Bishutean. The ruler remains silent instead of suspending the festival. One of the maids asks the assistant to keep her mouth shut. The prince didn't order anyone to blab about anything for nothing. Roan might become suspicious. She needs to think logically. Chartreuse was in the girl's room when the attack occurred. Even among the servants, there are people who talk about how the heroine is actually on the same side as that assassin. And everyone is asking if she lured the prince in order to lure him into a trap. Bishutean was caught by the tail, and Arjan was trapped. Everything that was happening seemed to be going in the direction that was beneficial to the Oberchamberlain. Everything was happening exactly as it suited him. The third prince of Bishutean is going on a short trip. He needs to personally attend the official reception of the hunting festival, so he must arrive on time. Many can tell where the foreigners are because they are all graceful walk. Gracefully, another country is called an important part of the continent's trade chain. All the ships that sail through the south visit them. Obviously, there are heaps of money and gold there. Some are against it because opinions cannot always be perfectly aligned. If Bishutin declares war, one cannot be sure of victory, so one must strike the first blow oneself, be prepared for anything. One of the biggest enthusiasts is silenced. A foreigner asks the young man if he thinks the war won't affect him, as this is unrealistic, and it's not recommended to believe in it. It's true that people from another country can break into Carthagena, but the inhabitants won't be sitting hidden in the castle. The battlefield will be villages and towns, and it won't be the big shots who die there, but ordinary citizens. The commoners will lose everything from their homes and families to their lands, and their children will be taken as soldiers once the men run out, and perhaps even die. The people around seem strange. This attracts the prince's attention. Of course they are against the war, but they understand that if the emperor orders, they will have to obey. They cannot doubt him or show dissatisfaction. It seems that everyone is under the influence of a spell. There is energy in the air. It is amazing that in an empire with such a big difference between rich and poor, for over 1,000 years, there has never been a rebellion. The opening ceremony of the hunting festival is over. The meal has begun. Fernando is glad that the day is fine, because they rarely attend events where they can show the greatness of their family. The kingdom is famous for its forests, and among them, the Insuri forest is the best. It has incredible scenery and food. This place has no shortage of things to make hunters' blood boil during the hunting season. They prepared something for the gentleman. An interesting thing was placed in front of him, a tray with traditional food. Eswar definitely wanted to treat him, so he asked the chef to do his best. Karnan is the first to guess the origin. A live animal is placed inside the dish, and Fernando joins the conversation to find out if the animal dies during cooking. The blonde smiles slyly. Of course, if you follow the instructions, everything should be fine. Cartazan is a wonderful country. An animal that everyone thinks is dead, suddenly, as if nothing had happened, begins to walk on its own two legs. It happens that even a snake crawling on the ground raises its head, and no one can hide their admiration. Eswar's good at metaphors, but deciding not to press any further, he points to the pie. Come on, try it. Usually, the entertainment is interesting if you put a milkmaid bird inside. But as a gift, the man will take care of all the details and prepare something different. Fernando only needs to make an incision. As soon as this happens, a huge snake crawls out of the pie. Silence falls over the table. Esvar heard that in Bishutian, they are treated not with fear, but as wise and magical reptiles that play an important role. Besides all this, it's hard not to notice that the coat of arms also features a snake. He decides to test his wisdom and calmly asks to guess the correct answer. Is the reptile a real poisonous creature, or was it brought in for show? With such wisdom as the prince possesses, he cannot disappoint Esvar in any way. He opens his mouth to answer, but does not see that a horse with a rider has appeared behind the trees. The second prince, Cartazan, is there. The young man takes aim skillfully, and then hits the snake that was on the table right in the throat he can't miss. And in order to prove his superiority, he launches a few more arrows. It's better that way. The gentleman's gaze immediately turns to him. No one thought that something like this performance would happen soon. The horse approaches. The gentleman dismounts from it and walks forward straight to the table. The gentleman asks the crown prince for forgiveness for interfering during the conversation. He should have immediately recognized the illusion for the sake of presentation, which is what he did. First of all, I should apologize to my dear guests from the neighboring country. There was a reason why the situation was not immediately recognized. Not long ago, a beloved maid was injured, and this worries him greatly. Earlier, His Majesty finished with the investigation. It became clear that the main culprit of what was happening was the Ober-Chamberlain, although they looked like they intervened by chance, but they are all connected. Lucien hesitates to the very end, because the man doesn't seem like someone who would betray the imperial family, and at the very least his respect for the crown prince must be sincere. It seems that Manhwa still cannot be a spy. I wonder what kind of abnormal expenses the crown prince's palace is spending. Someone made a deal, bought everything necessary for the assassination, gave the order to mercenaries with money. Absolutely anything is possible. Second Prince Cartazan addresses Fernando with frightening calm. He himself understands that he doesn't care why Bishutian was adapting to the bastard, but they have their last chance. It's best to keep your hands off what belongs to the master. If something goes wrong, the hero will destroy the entire prepared dinner. It won't be difficult for him to do everything correctly. He needs to find the next beast, which will be lying on the table during dinner. The carriage is driving through the forest. Arjun and Lucien are heading straight to Insuri. They are getting there this way, because we are talking about a hunting festival. The feudal lords are hunting in full swing. One must be careful not to get caught by them while they are busy with their business. The prince takes part in an official dinner, which under no circumstances could he miss. The woman still didn't understand why she was in such a place, and what to do there. Lucien didn't say anything. He just smiled nervously. He didn't know how he should explain everything in the ideal version. Something was downloading in his head. After a minute of silence, the young man begins to try to explain what is happening, and how he starts from afar, talking about the fact that there are two types of people in the world. There are those who try to hide what is dear to them so that no one will want it. And there are those who, on the contrary, first announce to the whole world the value of something, and then want to show that it belongs only to them, which means that everyone else is forbidden to touch it. Of the two options presented by Shartus's assistant, His Highness is more suited to the second option. To cut to the chase, Arjun has an important mission. She must rescue the young man from that place, and that's it. The man needs to write a report on the progress of Arias's inquiries. Most importantly, he's very bored at these kinds of meetings. More than 10 years of experience in handling the capricious prince's affairs haven't served the assistant well, but at least he understands how nature works. Finally, the carriage arrives at its destination. The maiden asks how she can best express words of greeting and respect. The hero also does not know the details. He only heard that the meeting was personally organized by the crown prince. At least there is nothing to worry about. Even before approaching the table, the brunette catches everyone present with her gaze. It is true that this is a small meeting, but everyone gathered at the table is the one the girl didn't want to meet. It will not be easy for her at all. The blue-eyed girl looks at Lucen helplessly. He told her about something else. It turns out he lied, or slightly embellished the truth. All attention turns to the maid. The atmosphere is strange, weighing on the head. It seems that Roan has arrived at the wrong time, that she shouldn't have come. But there is no turning back. She bows her head and greets everyone gathered at the table. Eswar is the first to react. He smirks and turns to his brother. When he saw the girl, it became clear why she is worth constantly thinking about. Roan is asked why she came without an invitation. The woman turns her gaze to Shartus, who doesn't even turn around. He doesn't say anything, and this can't help but irritate her. He himself asked to be taken away. They could have helped at least a little. She promises herself that someday she will find the right moment and do everything to touch him. She can only act without thinking. The maiden comes closer to the second Prince Kartazan and asks her to forgive her. She leans towards his ear. In a barely loud voice, so that no one could hear, she asks to talk to her in some hidden place. It will not be for long because of the silence. Even the guests who arrived from Bishutean heard everything. The mission failed. The beauty feels a wave of panic and awkwardness. She expressed herself a little incorrectly, but hopes that there was no misunderstanding. The heroine looks hopefully at Shartus. She wants him to correct the situation. The bastard only smiles. A moment later, the hero rises from his seat. The blonde asks him to forgive him, and then takes the maid in his arms, turning to the others. As you can see, the girl does not want to part with me for a moment. Lucan is standing near the carriage. A figure can be seen in the distance. A gentleman is walking towards him, carrying Roan on his shoulder, who is hanging helplessly down. He does not know how to ask if everything ended well, but the most important thing is that in the end, he managed to escape from an unpleasant dinner. The prince says that they will go out for some fresh air, and the assistant will ride at sunset to the eastern side of the palace. He mounts his horse and rides forward. The girl is clearly unhappy. They just created shameful memories for her in vain, which make her feel bad. Raising her head, the heroine comes face to face with the object of her hatred. She asks why such a look. The man asks the same question. Roan asks to keep her distance and not to cling to her. They resist her. It's not me, it's you. You've been holding on to my waist for some time now. The girl threatens to let the young man go, since they both don't like the situation they find themselves in. The lady takes her hands away, but they grab her because she could fall off the horse. The hero laughs. Roan's face flushes. She has never seen such a side of him before. He says that the lady can let go, but he does not think that it will be easy to do so, because Shartus intends to fully enjoy the opportunity that has been given to him. The woman admits to herself that she is lost again. It seems that they have arrived at their destination, isn't it? Wonderful, a bright floral scent can be felt. The sun's light falls on the eyes. A clearing appears before the eyes. It seems that this is the very place where they once met, back when Roan was in the guise of Arjun. The young man cherished this place since childhood. It was just time for flowering, so he brought a servant to show the beautiful views. The beauty smiles warmly. She decides to focus on the present. It seems to her that there is a parallel. This is not reality. The young man would never remember the one he saw in the clearing only once, and then in distant childhood. Instead of frequent smirks, which are usually not replaced by anything, the girl is sent a warm smile that takes him back to the times when he was still a little boy. The prince will earn forgiveness only because he remains nice. He cannot help but notice that the girl's condition has noticeably improved. The brunette decided to turn a blind eye to what happened. After all, she too had been forgiven a lot. And the way he forgot about yesterday already means a lot. The young man shows a stony face, and as if nothing had happened, says that he does not remember that he offered forgiveness. The lady sees no reason to punish her for the fact that they slightly touched lips. The lecherous look is confusing. The blue-eyed girl wants to hush up the situation, but apologizing verbally is not her style. She will fulfill one wish, whatever the prince wants. She is sure that he will know his limits and will not make an indecent wish. The blonde sits down. They find themselves on the same level. His eyes look inquisitively at the lady he approaches, and now the lips touch this time with even greater passion burning in the hearts of the couple. Initially, the young man wanted to bring Rowan to this place again, because even if it happened that they would not be able to meet in the future, with the help of the moments given, until the heart faded, Chartreuse would continue to live and fight against difficulties. The Bishutan princes go to their chambers. They will come for them when dinner is ready. Fernando noticed that the development of events is not at all as they expected. It became clear that Cartezan the second learned about the person behind that incident. If the empire didn't back down, they would be asked to officially bear responsibility. And if that happened, then the political position of the second Prince Bishutian would also be in danger. They had another reason for getting into trouble in the first place. The Burmese intended to place the indecisive and unreasonable first Prince Balsar on the throne. He would be easy to control and would be able to crush the country in his hands as he wished. Karnan understands the full extent of the situation. If they are caught by the scruff of the neck, it seems they will simply have a reason to tear themselves apart, and then their homeland will collapse. Corruption and oppression will develop. Fernando is supported by the common people, and although the aristocrats are against him, there is a chance of ascending to the throne. His brother believes that the king should be chosen by ordinary subjects. The young man is fawning, considering the merit of the commotion caused in Cartezan. One could say that the next heir has already been determined. It is only scary to think that high society might find fault, and then the position will be lost. The man waves it off. There's nothing to worry about. The girl was so happy to be leaving that she was jumping for joy, because since birth, there hadn't been a moment when the second prince hadn't irritated her. Even if a fool is placed on the throne, at least the plates will be safe, even though the hatred will continue to flow like a river over the edge. But it's not time to give up. Yet Fernando seems to have prepared a hole through which he can get out of the situation. The young man likes this turn of events. Apparently, Chartreuse stopped after just one warning, because he had guessed everything himself. Bishutan hadn't done much, only found a few items that the chamberlain had requested. Of course, Fernando made a mistake in his decision. The man uncovered a trap that they accidentally fell into. But no one could have guessed that Chartreuse, who never liked anyone, would fall for some maid. Normally, Arias shouldn't have come with bad news, but this time his failure could be considered a success. The princes almost followed the flow of that bastard's plan. It's scary to think what would have happened if they had succeeded in killing Roan. Then the prince would have no desire to find out who the real criminal was, and his anger would have been directed towards the country in the south. Fragments from the dinner come to mind again from the gentleman's reaction, and it was clear how much he is in love. The maiden was not dressed up so much, but seemed like a precious stone that sparkles brightly. All this time, the third prince did not notice the beautiful shell of the lady, because there was no opportunity to examine her. In any case, they observed a rare spectacle. It doesn't matter whether the young man has met the mistress of his heart. The princes are concerned about not remaining puppets. They will have many chances to try to improve. There are too many unanswered questions left in my head. Arias should have been captured. But if that were the case, he would have been brought to dinner, which means there is still hope for a better outcome. Chartreuse is taking a bath when there is a knock on his door. Luton comes in and says that Mano is not doing anything new. For now they have talked to the servants. They will all say that it was a simple misunderstanding at dinner. Until answers are found, no one must know about Arius's capture, and the man himself who was captured does not intend to open his mouth. The one responsible for the torture says it will take some time. The gentleman says that the next night the girl will personally meet with the hero the appointed time comes. The girl goes to the carriage where His Highness is waiting for her inside. They do not have much time. The young man carefully studies the beauty, and then calmly asks, "Where is the dress he gave her?" She shrugged her shoulders. "I left it in order to use it for special occasions, not for work." Usually, in situations like Arius's, the correct course of action is to immediately file a complaint with the International Court. Then Bishuteyan will confess to everything, and the Oberkammergericht will not be able to get away with it. They will deal with him, but this is precisely what the cunning Manhwa wants. Jurors can take part in the decision, meaning public opinion will be involved. The man is popular with the common people, so he will ensure that in this case, he gets away with everything. An assistant loyal to the imperial family could not act in such a way. Bishutin behaved insidiously, and it was really easy to turn everything to his advantage. Even Roan herself would have sided with him. The hero has a good reputation. They will trust him, and not the enemy of the empire. Prince Fernando, it is clear that he also intends to get rid of Argen. She cannot identify herself in court, but this makes the situation worse. They will be drawn into even greater problems. Everyone can be twisted around their finger. An influential duchy can be set up and made to look like they are in collusion with an enemy country. The girl thinks that there is an idea how to try to fix what has happened. Provided that they turn a blind eye to the crime committed by Fernando, it will be possible to obtain evidence of the orders given by the Chamberlain to Arius, on the basis of which it will be possible to convince Esvar, who after all cares more about his relatives than about his assistant. In that case, everything will be resolved much more easily than expected. But first of all, Bishutin will be released. No one is against the idea, there is no other opinion. Shardus thinks logically before a war starts between the two countries, which can no longer be prevented. They need to abandon this train, having done everything in their power. It is impossible to endanger the lives of tens of millions of subjects for the sake of honor and pride of the royal family. It is not worth it. It is scary to imagine what will happen to the lands if a war begins. According to the laws of the empire, all citizens over the age of 14 will be subject to conscription, recalling the history of how this happened during the reign of the country's very first emperor. He was incomparable, terrible. He spared no one, Castellus. Cartaginus wanted war, and being his subjects, people had no right to be afraid of shedding blood. But on the contrary, they could only move forward doing everything for the sake of victory. Even if victory were achieved, there would be nothing and no one left in the arms of the common people. A senseless deed should never happen. The lady is disgusted to think about it. She tries to distract herself. Shardus carefully takes the girl's hand in his own. He couldn't ignore the fact that she was starting to get nervous, which meant it was better to try to calm her down before they arrived at their destination. Bishuteyan had already been given a warning. It was an advance warning. If that guy Fernando turned out to be as wise as he seemed, he should already change his mind and not want to carry out his plans. A long way has been traveled. Everything is not for nothing, because initially, they had a goal to stop what was started long before the case. The Chamberlain will be stopped. The talking crow recognized the one who will become emperor. Sweet words and wisdom appeared to her, were whispered in her ear. She planted the seed of disaster on the land's rotten internal roots. The carriage arrives at its destination. There's enough time, all that's needed is Arius's testimony. The secret council's response was also obtained. The link connecting the deals between the villain and the Bishutin royal palace is the mercenary. Menno remained in the empire, so he requested the items he needed through a pawn, and the second prince received the money and made all the arrangements. Items like people were involved in their deals. Everyone knows what things when and how Arius exchanged this will help in the search for more significant evidence. This could be a good advantage. Argen will go to the meeting first. She will be called after full preparation. Time drags on terribly slowly. Hostin finds curiosity in asking if the lady thinks the mercenary will accept her offer, because if he confesses, he won't be able to leave alive. Lucen intervenes. Wasn't his life exchanged for Fernando's safety? The man believes that the person will accept everything without a doubt. Even before the assistant was assigned to Prince Shardus and got into the kingdom itself, he saw that person. That day, he had the chance to see a lot. Someone brought a brat and asked the master to punish him, saying that the child killed a man, or rather, almost managed to kill. Holding the boy by the collar, the man shakes him in the air, shouting that they wanted to kill the grandmother only because she had food. Mr. Fernando pushes the servants away, although they notice that it is dangerous to come closer. Bowing down and flashing his eyes, the young man asks the righteous question of why people fight over some measly piece of bread, putting their lives on the line, why the murdered man was starving. Why did it happen this way? The man knows how slaves live. They work every day without stopping, but still do not even have food. The boy does not want to remain silent. He confidently shouts that the aristocrats robbed their storerooms. The prince is told that on top of everything else, the ordinary workers are being robbed of their money and opportunities. Even their homes are being taken away. The young man could only grin. What a surprise. The hero came up with the perfect plan. If he were given a favor, he would ensure that the common people would no longer be robbed by the aristocrats. And if he didn't fulfill his promise, Pelican could always be rocked. From that moment on, Arias followed Fernando. But something else worries him. It is unclear to what extent Esfar will believe the words of a foreigner who was captured. Be that as it may, Count Maino had been at His Highness's side for a long time. Perhaps it would have been better for Chartreuse to speak out personally, to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. The future ruler will definitely believe the words spoken personally by his brother. The Chamberlain thinks that the prince will never be able to do this, so he acts behind his back. For the two brothers, and especially for the eldest, he was literally like another parent. He helped out generously. Chartreuse had already taken away so much, favor the title of emperor, which the eldest desired, and even the rest of his life. Even if it wasn't his desire, the man lived in constant remorse, and now he would have to take away from his brother with his own hands the last thing that was left. It turns out that the prince will take away a person who is similar to a relative on whom one can rely, and the thought makes one sick. Hostin is confident that the second prince has decided what he really needs, and Lucien supports his words. Roan was offered to stay in the castle even after her mission was completed. The conversation was postponed. It was time to go to the cell. There is a man sitting inside. Ordinary mercenaries commit suicide as soon as they are caught by the enemy. They always have a measuring cup of poison in their mouth. Because the human mind weakens in the face of pain, under prolonged torture, a person will have no choice but to divulge all secrets. The boy was found to be free of poison, meaning he is filled with confidence and devotion to his master, and a conversation with him will be successful.